Yeah.
I might as well put you on your awesome stand and face Jerusalem. Blessing of the Sabbath. Barakatah Yahweh. Ba'ashem Yahushai. Asherah. Bethelanawa. Ashabath. Bashalawam. Thowada. Amen. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the Sabbath in peace. Thank you, so be it. Taha'ayim Ma'ad Asherayim Akkad, Psalms 121. Anya Harayim Mayanyam Ya Oh Haharim Mayan Yabawa'a Isaiah Yabawa'a Mayahawa Shaisha Shemayim Wa'aratiza Ma'a Yanathan Lamawat Regalia Yala'a Yanawam Shashamarka Hana La'a Yanawam Wala'a Yayashun Shashuma Yasharella Yahweh Shamaya Yahweh Tazalia I'll God Yum 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 Yawamum Hashamash La'a Hakaya Wayarat La'a Balayala Yahweh Yashamaria Mako Ra Yashama Napasha Yahweh Yashama Hawalakia Wabawaya Ma'aitha Wa'ai Iwalam Basham Yahweh Thawada Aman. Shema Yashrela, Hail Israel. Shema Yashrela, Yahweh, Allahayanawa, Yahweh, Akkad. Shema Yashrela, Yahweh, Allahayanawa, Yahweh, Akkad. Shema Yashrela, Yahweh, Allahayanawa, Yahweh, Akkad. Amen. Yahweh Stapala, the Lord's Prayer. Abiyanawa, Shabashamayim, Kodash, Hayah, Shamka, Yahweh, Malakwaka, Saba'a, Ratazawanka, Haya, Aisha, Ba'arataza, Ka, Bashamayim, Nathalanawa, Lakam, Yowum, Za, Wasalakanawa, Kababathnawa, Kasalaknawa, Kababathanawa, Wala'a, Hadayanawa, O, Nasayawan, Abo, Hawashinawa, Mara, Kaya, Laka, Hamalakwa, Waha'ala, Wahatha Pa'arath, La'aywalam, Aman. Amen. Asherah Matazawaf, the Ten Commandments. La'ah, Yahaya, Laka, Alahayim, Akarium, Alpanya. La'ah, Thaisha, Laka, Paso, Wala'ah, Thaibadam. La'ah, Thalakwaka, Shamwa, Yahawah, Alahayaka, Lashua, Zakar, Ath, Hayawum, Hashabath, Lakodashwa, Kabad, Abiaka, Wa Amaka, La'ah, Thratazat, La'ah, Thana'at, La'ah, Thaganab, La'ah, Thaina, Shakur, La'ah, Thakamad, Ko, Asherah, Lara'ayaka, Aman.
Not bound down that I do not thy father is jealous of, visiting the iniquity of the fathers of the children, the fourth generation of them that hate you, and mercy because of them that love you, keep my commandments, that does not take the name of the Lord thy father in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guilty that they make the name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day for 6 days, that are labor, the Lord thy God. The seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy father. Many that are not doing work. Thou, but thy son, but thy daughter, thy men, but thy maid, but thy cattle, but thy stranger, that is in thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that in it is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy father will feed. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his maidservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's.
Aman. Yeshabah, be seated. Barakatha Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Nathalanawa, Par Yahagapim, Thawada Aman, La Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ath Yasha Allah. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives us the fruit of the vine. Thank you so big to Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai with Israel. I model upon you while you're Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem. Barakatha Yahweh, Hagadol, Rakuam, Abiyar, Wanara'ah, Alayawan, Malak, Sho, Shemayim, Wa'aratazah, Wako, Jabarium, Kayayam, Wagum, Hamashiach, Mayahawa, Arawanawa, Ahabnawa, Hapalah, Yahweh Itazah, Yahweh Shai. Zakar Nawa, Yahweh, Baratazawan, Anka, Yasha'Allah. Izar Nawa, Banah, Wasap, Yasha'Allah, O, Nanawa, Yum Yun, Aitha, Kayawumyum, Makwadam. Baba Kusha, Shalak, Mayaka'Allah, Wahatazawadat, Alahayim, La, Maganawa, Rapanawa, Washamar, Alnawa, Ba'aikwar, Shalat, Haroka, Shon, Yahweh Shai, Lanawa, Lalamanawa, Rabium, Kakama, Sabawana, Wada'ith, Shaw, the Baraka, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Thawada, Yad, Wa'iwalam, Arman. English translation. Blessed are Yahweh, the great, merciful, mighty, terrible, most high power, King of heaven and earth, and all things living. And also the anointed from Yahweh, our Lord, our friend, the wonderful counselor, Yahweh Shai. Remember us, Yahweh, favorably, your people Israel. Help us build and gather Israel. Most high, we beg you, right now, like the days of old, please send Michael and the righteous powers to protect us, heal us, and watch over us. Mainly send the spirit of Yahweh Shai to us to teach us much wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of thy word. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you always and forever. So be it. Repeat the Hebrew only. Blessed are Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the law. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Bethalanawa, Athawara. Blessed are Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us light to see. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Bethalanawa, War, Lara Awa. Blessed are Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives us the ram song to call the people. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Bethalanawa, Korun, Ha'ayo, La Korah, Ha'aim. Blessed are Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the olive oil to anoint Israel. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Bethalanawa, Hashaman, Zayath, Lamashak, Yasha'Allah. Shabbat, be seated. All right, Shalom, Shalom, Ashar Shabbat to Israel, to everyone that's watching on the live stream, those that's listening in on the teleconference, and to the Akim that's here in the school. Again, Ashar Shabbat, happy Sabbath, peace and blessings to all the brothers and sisters throughout the four corners that understand the will of the Most High, that's serving the Lord to the best of their abilities in these last days, that's keeping themselves unspotted or trying to keep themselves unspotted from the world. Those whose ancestors on their father's side, representatives of the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel, those are the so-called Negroes that came over in the diaspora that was scattered throughout the four corners on the earth, mainly North, Central, and South America. Those who were the indigenous Native American Indians, Seminole Indians that was in Canada and North America prior to the conquistadors, the Portuguese, the Dutch, the Spaniards coming over here to the Americas, those whose ancestors on their father's side that represents the so-called Aztecs, Mexican, Taino Indians found throughout Central and South America, throughout the Caribbean, those who now also go by Haitians, those who go by West Indians. You are representatives. You are the descendants of the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. We are royalty. We are a holy priesthood nation that the Most High has called his chosen, the apple of his eye. We have a lot to be prideful about. However, as a nation, historically, we fell away from keeping the Most High's laws, statutes, and commandments. We went away from our heritage. We followed after the other nations. We followed after their culture. We followed after their customs. We took their identity upon ourselves. And this is what now has brought us into a lower state, not only here in the Americas, throughout the four corners where some of us have migrated. So we come together today on the Sabbath day because it is a commandment found in Exodus, the 20th chapter and the 8th verse, that we keep the Sabbath day holy as a day of rest from all of our pleasures, from all of our labors, and we come before him. We come before the Father, Bahashem Yahushua, to give honor and praise and just due and respect to him on this day, to remember that he is the most high power. He is the one that provides everything for us, food, clothing, sustenance, as well as the most important thing that we walk with today, which is the wisdom of his will, right? So we have to be thankful, right? We know this Esau's so-called holiday, Thanksgiving, is coming up next. Is it Thursday? Next Thursday. But the scriptures told us that we always should give thanksgiving to the Most High. In everything and anything we do, we should always do it to the will and power of the Most High and give thanksgiving and honor to him. All right. So today is a Sabbath day. Come some water. Today is a Sabbath day. My name is Priest or Kahan Samak. We will be going into the Old Testament for today's Sabbath service lesson. Today we will be in the last book of Judges and the first book of Ruth. All right. The last book of Judges and the first book of Ruth for today's Sabbath service lesson. So make sure you have your pens. Kind of try to rid yourself of a lot of things that's going on in the world, and let's tune in and try to tap in to the spirit of the Most High. All right, so we're going to start off in Judges chapter 21. Now, remembering, just catching up, I think Paquad went through the service the last time we was in Judges, where Benjamin committed an atrocity. They committed murder. They was also into, what we would call unclean sexual acts, as far as for trying to get into homosexuality. It was doing a lot of things, and they went and took a Levite brother's concubine, and they raped her and killed her in the rape, causing him, in his disdain and disgust after she died, he cut up her body parts and sent it throughout the other tribes throughout the nation, except the Benjamin, to kind of give them notice on what this tribe had done. So in disgust, they got together and they went before the Lord and said that they was going to go and fight against Benjamin. And when you check out the story, what's interesting is that they went out to go fight against Benjamin. The first time, Benjamin put it to him. They went out again to fight the second time. Benjamin put it to him. The third time, the Most High said that he was going to give all the other tribes the victory over Benjamin. And that's what happened, right? So you got to pay attention to that. And when you read that, because it said that they went and asked of the Lord, and the Lord said, go up and fight. So some of those brothers died that went up to go fight against Benjamin, right? Once and twice. But the third time, the Lord gave them the victory, and they nearly wiped out the tribe of Benjamin. This is what we see in the last portion of the book of the 20th chapter. They almost wiped out Benjamin, but there was a crew of them that fled and was left into a certain area. I'm going to go back to Judges chapter 20 and read from verse 43 on down, just to kind of catch us up. It's like when you watch the movie or a TV series, they give you the synopsis of what happened in the last episode. Let's get the synopsis of what happened at the last episode as we go into the final chapter. So this is Judges chapter 20, verse 43. It says, thus they enclosed the Benjamites round about and chased them and trode them down with ease over against Gibeah toward the sun rising. Because like we mentioned before, when you read up further in the chapter, they didn't have much success. But this time, they went and trode upon Benjamin with ease, meaning the Most High opened it up so that they could easily now go and take down Benjamin. This was Benjamin's fate at this time. And there fell of Benjamin 18,000 men. All of these were men of valor, meaning these were men who were esteemed within Benjamin. These were fighters, these were warriors, but the Lord had all of them killed. Verse 45, and they turned and fled toward the wilderness unto the rock of Ramon, and they gleaned of them in the highways 5,000 men, and pursued hard after them into Gidom, and slew 2,000 men of them. So now they on the run, they flee into a certain area, tells you how many men, and they gleaning them, meaning they killing them, because when you read about gleaning, that's in the law as far as for your crops, right? You're supposed to not glean the corners of your fields. You're supposed to leave that for the poor, right? So if you got a field, you go and you harvest all, but you leave the outside. So now as they going and chasing them, they catching the hindmost and the outside parts, and they killing them as they all running, because they're the ones that's close in proximity. Verse 46. So that all which fell that day of Benjamin was 25,000 men that drew the sword. All these were men of valor, right? So the number is increasing of all of these Benjamites that's getting killed, right? Named men. Now check this out. This is key. Verse 47. But 600 men turned and fled to the wilderness unto the rock Ramon, and abode in the rock Ramon 4 months. So out of that crew of Benjamites that was getting slaughtered, these 600 managed to escape and go flee to an area and stay away from the slaughter that was going on for the span of 4 months, right? It says, verse 48, and the men of Israel turned again upon the children of Benjamin and smote them with the edge of the sword, as well the men of every city as the beast, and all that came to hand. Also, they set on fire all the cities that they came to. So this reminds you when we came into Jericho and we came to the Hamitic towns and places that we would go and conquer, the Most High had it where we killed everything, right? This is almost that rage that the Lord had where we went and killed all the men, even the animals, and then burned the cities, right? This was like a purification that was going on within Benjamin to like wipe it out because of the sin that they had done with this brother's concubine, right? So now this is where we at. Most of all Benjamin is eradicated, the men. But these 600 men is the ones that's held up in Ramon, right? So now with that in mind and we caught up, let's jump into the 21st chapter, right? It says, now the men of Israel had sworn in Mizpah, saying, there shall not any of us give this his daughter unto Benjamin to wife. Right? So they knew that these guys was now still left, a remnant was left. So they go into Mizpah and they swear an oath that nobody is now going to, of the tribes, is going to give their daughters to the Benjamites to wife. Why? Because they didn't want them to raise up seed, right? They felt that if they kept women from them, that they would not become a tribe anymore. So in their, wisdom, they felt that this is how we're going to now deal with them, right? They're going to die out from being a tribe if we don't give them any daughter. So this is an oath now. Go to Numbers, the 30th chapter. The book of Numbers, the 30th chapter. And the first verse. Somebody read that Bible for sure. Down to 2. Go ahead.
So Numbers chapter 30, verse 1. And Moses spoke to the heads of the tribes concerning the children of Israel, saying, this is the thing which the Lord had commanded. If a man vow a vow unto the Lord, or swear an oath to bind his souls with a bond, he shall not break his word. He shall do according to all that proceedeth out of his mouth.
Right. So your word is your bond. If a man vows a vow unto the Lord or swear an oath to bind his soul with a bond, you got to execute whatever that is. That's where we get that saying, your word is your bond. You don't have to go and swear to the Most High, but if you put your name on something, you gotta execute that. You gotta exact that, right? Because now if you don't, what happens? What happens if you put an oath or make a promise or something and you don't come through? You break your covenant, you break your agreement. What else? What else happens? People won't take you seriously. You won't be trustworthy. Remember, we're supposed to be gesturing. We're supposed to be the upright ones, so that when we say what we say, we act upon that. That's how the Lord always wanted us to be. But now when you go and you make all these swears and these oaths and these promises and these covenants and you don't keep them, now people don't take you seriously. Now it's like, ah, man, look at this guy. This guy's not, he ain't real, right? And in the streets, that still holds today, right? In the streets, that still holds, whether you was not in the truth. People still hold your word to be bond. Once you break it, no one is taking you seriously. So now this is between us and the Most High. So Israel, to a certain extent, honored this. There's like, yo, if we make an oath, this is what we got to do. And their oath was that none of your men better give your daughters, because remember, like we talked about in the class this evening, that, and even last week, that for daughters to be married, their fathers were the ones who were the primary custodians to now give their daughters over to be a wife of another man, right? It just didn't happen normally haphazardly. It was in order based on the men. So this was the oath. None of these men should give their daughters to the tribe of Benjamin so that they can rear up and become a tribe again. This was like a punishment for them. For quiet.
At the same time, making oath is so severe. You have to abide, you have to do everything in it, but not all oath. Knowing that the consequence of an oath, if you don't keep it, at the same time, you should guard yourself from making an oath that is too harsh, because as far as the law is concerned, it gives reward and punishment. Also, it guards against punishment that is too harsh. So you got to take a look at what what Israel did, whether it was a warrant for to call some harsh punishment. Later on, as you read, you're going to see what they had to do in order to honor that oath that they did.
So this is what was guidance given to us by Yahushua. Just annotating this. Go to Matthew, the 5th chapter, because some of us, we coming out of the world, we would take the Lord's name in vain. We would make these oaths or these promises that we couldn't keep, and Christ kind of gave us some wisdom on guarding ourselves from that. This is Matthew chapter 5. And 33.
Matthew chapter 5 and verse 33. Again, ye have heard that it hath been said by them of old time, thou shalt not forswear thyself, but shalt perform unto the Lord thine oaths.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 34. But I say unto you, swear not at all, neither by heavens, for it is God's throne.
Come on.
Nor by the earth, for it is his footstool, neither by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Neither shalt thou swear by thy head, because thou canst not make one hair white or black.
Right. So now this is what we used to do in old time, and we had to keep these oaths. But Christ said, you know what? Don't even do that anymore. Right? Don't swear on the Most High. Don't swear on heaven. Don't swear on earth. Don't swear on the city. Don't swear on the king. Don't even swear on the heads of your head. Because that's what we used to do. I swear on my mama. I swear on my kid. I swear on my dad, such and such. I swear, we swear, this swear, that swear. And it just become commonplace, right? Not understanding the severity, like Paquad said, when we do the swearing or we do these oaths. So Christ came for these times and said, put a pause on that until we get ourselves fully understanding the ramifications of us now trying to rebuild ourselves back up. But then he says, what? Read on. Right, 37.
This is verse, Matthew chapter 5, verse 37. But let your communications be yea, yea, nay, nay. For whatsoever is more than these cometh of evil.
Right. But let your communication just be kun or la'ah. Yes or no. Right. And then to take it to a step further, if somebody could find that scripture, I can't remember off the top of my head, where when we say kun or we say that we're going to do something, we do it all to the Most High's will. Right. If the Lord wills it, then I'll do it. Because if I'm supposed to meet Kahan Nabayah tomorrow at 3 o'clock, Samak, we're going to come here and we're going to do these floors or something. And I say, yeah, Khan, I'll be here tomorrow at 3 o'clock. And then something come up, right? My car broke down, or I forgot that I had some other prior engagement that I didn't consider, and I had that already. So now he gets himself all together. He's come, he got the supplies here, and he's about to get ready. And then someone calls me at 2 o'clock. Yeah, Samak, make sure you bring that thing when you come over here. I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah, you had already made this over here. Now my mind done slipped, and now that was before. So I got to call him and say, sorry, my bad. I ain't going to be able to make it because such and such, right? So that kind of removes me from always putting myself in a situation where now I can break an oath or break an agreement. I'll leave it up to the Most High, right? Most High's will, I'll be there, brother, because we are the Most High. It says man's goings is of the Lord. You know, I want to be there, but the Most High want me to be somewhere else, right? Some brother come to the house and he asking me a question of the scripture. He come with a real problem. I got to deal with that, right? We going through scripture for 5 hours. He's sitting here 4:30 like, yo, what the heck is going on, Samak? I'm like, oh, my bad. I spirit had it where these brothers came by and we had to handle this. It was important, right? So James 4:15, read that. Start 13.
Go to now. Go to now. He that say today or tomorrow, we will go into such a city and continue there a year and buy and sell and get gain.
Right. That's what people normally do. They contrive it in their minds that they're going to go and make some business. We're going to go tomorrow and do such and such. Right. Read.
Whereas ye know not what shall be on tomorrow, for what is your life? It is even a vapor that appear for a little time and then vanish away.
Right. So we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow that we can confirm and say that this is what's going to happen. Right. We don't know what the Most High has in place. It says we are like a vapor, meaning the spirit that now it could be here today, gone tomorrow. Right. So now how do we approach that? How do we deal this when we consider what we plan to do in the future, whether it be 10 minutes from now, 30 minutes from now, what have you? Read.
For that he ought to say, if the Lord will, we shall live and do it and do this or that.
Right. So this is what we should think and say. If the Lord wills it, then we should live, or we should be able to do this, or we're going to be able to go there and do that if the Lord wills these things. Right. Read on.
But now ye rejoice in your boasting. All such rejoicing is evil.
Right. So now when you have pride built up and you don't think that you need to rely on the Most High for some of these things, the pride sets in. And what happens? It becomes evil, right? So we want to make sure that we can remove ourselves from those types of thoughts, or not easily be conformed into sliding into that type of pride that we think that we're going to always be in control of our destiny, right? We're trying to do as much as we can as the Lord wills it, right? And we leave it in the Most High's hands. You have something else, Con? Okay, come. All right, so let's go back. Let's go back to Judges chapter 21. So Judges chapter 21 and 1, it says, now the men of Israel have sworn in Mizpah, saying, there shall not any of us give his daughter unto Benjamin to wife, right? So this is the oath sworn by all the other tribes of Israel. And the people came to the house of God and abode there till evening before Yahweh, and lifted up their voices and wept sore. So after they made this oath, then they went and spent some time before the sanctity of the Most High. Then they started to bethink themselves. Then they started to consider what the hell they had just done, right? Now they wept sore. For who? Their brethren. Verse 4. So like verse 3. And said, O Lord, power of Israel, why is this come to pass in Israel, that there should be today one tribe lacking in Israel, right? Now they're being remorseful. Now they're considering all that just happened, that just now what happened through the events of the war and the killings and everything. Now they're realizing one of the tribes is about to be lacking. We might not even have a tribe no more. Why is it like this, Most High? What's going on? What did we just do, right? Verse 4, and it came to pass on the morrow that the people rose early and built there an altar and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. And the children of Israel said, who is there among all the tribes of Israel that came not up with the congregation of the Lord? For they had made a great oath concerning him that came not up to the Lord of Mizpah, saying, he shall surely be put to death, right? So now we understand a little bit more of the oaths that was made, right? As far as for those who made the oath, as far as for not giving their daughters to wife, and those who had not come up to go and be with them and deal with all of the situation that's going on. So that it's like, listen, these guys should be put to death. Who was it out there that never came up? We're going to go and deal with them, right? So now they're looking at this as an opportunity to right the wrong, right? Now, one thing we got to remember, let me see if it's in this verse, because they mention it in a lot of chapters. It says, in those days, Israel was what? Was pleasing in their own eyes, right? In those days, Israel didn't have a king, and it was doing things that was pleasing in their own eyes. Now, when those days Israel didn't have a king, Israel never had a king at this point, right? It mentions Moses being king in Jeshurun, but he wasn't an anointed king. He was viewed as being the leader or ruler of the nation. But now they didn't have a king, and they was doing everything that was righteous in their own eyes. So here it is. They go and they make this pact and say, we ain't going to give no daughters to Benjamin. And anybody who don't come up and fight with us to go and take Benjamin out, they're going to be killed, right? We didn't read this in the former chapters, but now we're checking out that this is what was said indirectly back then. I'm going to read it again. It says, and the children of Israel said, who is there among all the tribes of Israel that came not up with the congregation unto Yahweh? For they had made a great oath concerning him that came not up to the Lord to Mizpah, saying, he shall surely be put to death. And the children of Israel repented for Benjamin their brother, and said, there is one tribe cut off from Israel this day, right? So now they're remorseful for Benjamin, and now they're going to take it out on anybody who didn't come up based on this oath that they made, right? So they're all over the place with how they're dealing with their wisdom on how to deal with justice and right and wrongs. It says, how shall we do for the wives for them that remain, seeing we have sworn by the Lord that we will not give them of our daughters to wives? So this is that repentance portion, right? We know that there's 600 men that's still caught up in Ramah. How are we going to deal with them? How are we going to get them wild so that they can continue on as a tribe? What are we going to do? Verse 8, and they said, there is one of the tribes of Israel that came not up to Mizpah to the Lord. And behold, there came none to the camp from Jabesh Gilead to the assembly. Right now, Jabesh Gilead is on the east side of the Jordan River. Right, they're on the other side of the Jordan River. So they said those brothers never came up. Right. So now, after we almost slaughtered Benjamin, and we wanted to kill them all, some escaped. But so that they don't get totally eradicated, we're going to go and kill these brothers, right? We're going to kill these brothers and do what? What do you think we're going to do after they kill those men? Take their women, right? They're going to go kill these men and take their women, right? They murdering these guys to go and give their daughters for them after they went out there and killed off these guys, right? Every man is their righteous in their own eyes. This is what's going on during the time of the judges. So I'm going to read it again, verse 8. And they said, what one is there of the tribes of Israel that came not up to Mizpah to Yahweh? And behold, there came none to the camp from Jabesh Gilead to the assembly, right? Jabesh Gilead was Manasseh. Manasseh is the so-called Cubans, right? Half tribe of Manasseh was on the other side, and they're the ones who had that region. So it says, for the people were numbered, and behold, there were none of the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead there. So they numbered not only just the people, but they number where you came from. You had to have a chief or a ruler represent your town or your region or where you come from, and they wasn't accounted for. So they said, oh man, these Manassites over here in Jabesh Gilead, they fallen victim to the oath that we made. If you don't come up. Now, they probably didn't know about it. Don't matter. They knew about it, they didn't. Don't matter. They got to die according to their rationale. Mm-hmm.
They went and inquired to the Most High, but they forget that the answer lies behind the excessive vengeance. But they don't see the excessive vengeance, but they cry to the Most High as if it's the Most High that fixed it.
Right. And that's why I pointed out when you read back in Judges 20, how the Most High had people from Benjamin killed, and he had the other tribes killed, because the Lord sent them out and they died, and they came back and asked the Lord again, and he sent them out and they died again. They was going out to right the wrong that Benjamin had done, but they was wicked too, and the Lord killed them as well, right? So the whole nation, everybody is wicked as hell right now, without a judge, without someone now to be their ruler or leader to give them laws, statutes, and commandments and morals within the nation, right? So now here it is, they're about to go and get after Jabesh Gilead and murder these men. Read verse 9. For the people were numbered, and behold, there were none of the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead there. And the congregation sent thither 12,000 men of the valiantest, and commanded them, saying, go and smite the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead with the sword, with the women and the children, right? So now they're saying, out of all the rest of the tribes, you know, Gad, Judah, Levi, whatever, right? We're going to choose the best ones, right? The valiant and the most courageous. We don't need everybody. Choose our best fighters. And then y'all go down there and y'all smite the men, the women, and the children. Now, damn, you're like, well, if they're going to smite men, women, and children, it's going to take everybody out. But then it says in verse 11, and this is the thing that ye shall do. Ye shall utterly destroy every male and every woman that have lain by man, right? So every man child had to go, right? And every woman that had been married to a man, because, you know, according to the law, right, that's that man's husband. So you kill him and you kill someone who was already humbled by a man, right? So they only want virgins. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Right. Kill everybody, keep the virgins, bring them here, right? That was the order that was given. Verse 12, and they found among the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead 400 virgins that had known no man by lying with any male. And they brought them unto the camp of Shiloh, which is in the land of Canaan, right? So now they found 400 after they did what? Went out there and killed everybody else, right? So now they had to go and find out if this woman had kids, right, by some other man, whether he was alive or not. If she had kids, she had been with a man. She got to go. Kid got to go, right? That's how they was operating. So that was like a great slaughter that was going on. And you imagine seeing this? 12,000 men, warriors just rummaging through their own brother's country, right? Their own people's country. And they just killing men. And these men probably don't know what the heck is going on. And they come in and they slaughtering and they killing women, right? This, from the outside looking in, looks treacherous, man. This looks crazy. And then they're grabbing up the women and they're taking the women and probably whatever. And they now got to come with these men to now Shiloh, right? Verse 13, and the whole congregation sent some to speak to the children of Benjamin that were in the rock Ramon and to call peaceably unto them. So now they got the 400 virgins. And now they said, okay, we about to make peace with our brothers, Benjamin. Somebody go and speak to them and say that we come in peace. Wave the white flag. We're not coming to fight. We're not coming with no weapons. Look, I ain't got no weapons, right? We just want to come in peace. We want to give you an olive branch, right? Verse 14, and Benjamin came again at that time, and they gave them wives, which they had saved alive of the women of Jabesh Gilead, and yet so they suffered them not, right? So now here it is. Benjamin comes out, all 600 of them. And they said, brothers, we're sorry, we apologize. We repented for what we did. We almost took y'all all out. But to make up so that you can now become a tribe again, that you don't get totally eradicated, we got wives for you to go into and make more children and now increase your tribe. But then it says, and yet, so they suffers them not, right? So they said, hold on. But that's a problem now. I see you brought these virgins for us, but that's a problem. Why is it a problem? Why would they not, why were they not pleased with this? You got to consider, how many men is it? 600 men. How many virgins? 400. So imagine now you're seeing a limited amount of women for more men. Is like, who gets a wife? Who gets a virgin? So that causes contention. So some people ain't happy. They're not pleased with this, right? So I see what y'all was trying to do, but man, come on, man. He's causing more problems now, right? Now I'm going to be mad and envious at my brother because he got a wife. I ain't get one. So they still got to fix this, right? So now it says, and the people repented them for Benjamin because that the Lord had made a breach in the tribes of Israel. And the elders of the congregation said, how shall we do for wives for them that remain, seeing the women are destroyed out of Benjamin? So they thought about it. It says, what are we going to do for the 200 men that remain? 400 got wives, but 2 of them don't. What are we going to do for them? We got to fully, deal with Benjamin in a righteous manner. Seeing as though we just killed off Manasseh in Jabesh Gilead, you murder one tribe, then you go murder another tribe, and that ain't enough. So now what you going to do? It says in verse 17, and they said, thus must be an inheritance for them that be escaped of Benjamin, that a tribe be not destroyed out of Israel, right? So this is important, man. They're realizing it wasn't about them just having wives. It was about what? Inheritance. Because remember, when we go back to the book of Joshua, the Most High had Joshua be the steward to make sure that each tribe had their own lot, had their own place of inheritance. So now here's a man, Benjamin, who now out of his lineage, and you got different people within that, that's their lineage, that's their lot, right? Just like how you go somewhere and people buy a plot of land, you put your name on it. That's yours that you can pass on down throughout the generations. So every piece of land that was in that region was supposed to be for Benjamin that was around there by Jerusalem. It was supposed to be for Benjamin and no one else. But what happens if you got only 600 men left and then you got a third of the land that's in Benjamin for these men and they die off? What's going to happen to that land? Who's going to inherit it? Nobody. So they said, we can't have this happen. We got to get women for these men so that they can raise up seed so they can have land still to their name in that region, right? So now it's interesting where, we was talking about this in the class, how sometimes you pick and choose certain aspects of the law, right? Because in this sense, they're thinking about making sure the inheritance is good. But in another sense, they make it some murdering brothers. They're killing people, right? It's like, okay, I can see this over here, but this over here, this is like crazy. What the heck is this? The logics don't marry up to make it make sense. But you can understand what they're thinking for the wives portion.
They could have, repent from the foolish oath that they made, and then say, "Most High, we ain't gonna go down like that. This is our brothers. I know we made an oath with you, but we're gonna annihilate our own people. So it's better to do that instead of getting rid of everybody else, then trying to
Lights on outside.
Trying to go and trying to fix things. So it's like they keep making wrong decision, right decision, wrong decision, they all over the place.
Right. So now verse, I'm gonna reread verse 17. It says, and thus said they, and they said, there must be an inheritance for them that be escaped of Benjamin, that a tribe be not destroyed out of Israel. It says, howbeit, we may not give them wives of our daughters, because why? For the children of Israel have sworn, saying, cursed be he that giveth a wife to Benjamin, right? So when you put a curse out there, penalties, either men going to do it or the Most High going to do it, because that was the oath. I don't want that on me. It's going to have to be on someone else. So that's why they went out there and killed Jabesh Gilead. They didn't want to die. They'd rather kill their brother. It says, then they said, behold, there is a feast of Yahweh in Shiloh yearly in a place which is on the north side of Bethel, on the east side of the highway that goeth up from Bethel to Shechem, and on the south of Lebonah, right? So they realized and remembered that there was one of the feast days that we was keeping at this time. They was keeping it yearly, right? So you had, some of the tribes that was staying tuned to the high holy days, right? Because remember, we're at a time where everybody's doing their own thing, right? They kind of partial. They're not fully vested into the Most High's laws, statutes, and commandments, his high holy days, but they were. So they said, yo, we know every year they're going to come out to this. This might be our opportunity. This might be the chance that we can go get more wives for these brothers at this feast day, right? It says, therefore they commanded the children of Benjamin, saying, go and lie in wait in the vineyards and see and behold, if the daughters of Shiloh come out to dance in dances, then come ye out of the vineyards and catch you every man his wife of the daughters of Shiloh and go to the land of Benjamin. So they said, look, go throughout the vineyards, grape fields, and hide there. They usually, the women come out and they do these dances amongst themselves, right? They dance, in honor of the feast day, right? While they doing that, you wait until they come. And when they come, then y'all jump out and y'all surround them and y'all grab y'all up a daughter to be your wife, right? Now, you say to yourself, hold on, this is like kidnapping.
Yeah,
the hell is going on here? Yeah, because now they're not even dealing with it according to the manner of the law, where if you go get a wife, you go and you speak to that man's father, that woman's father, right? And you ask him that he give his daughter to marry, you give him the shekels, so forth and so on. Y'all just not taking care of that. Y'all go out here and kidnapping women. You kind of like how you see in, how did you tell about the cavemen? How Esau was in the caves. He used to walk with a club and he boop, hit a woman over the head and he drag her back to his little cave somewhere. This is somewhat kind of that Neanderthalish type mind state, right? But now watch this. It says in verse 22, and it shall be when their fathers or their brethren come unto us to complain. So they knew right off the rip that this wasn't going to be accepted, right? Somebody's going to be like, yo, what the heck is my daughter? Who is that? Right? And they go out there and all the fathers and their brothers, right? You know, I got brothers, right? Their brothers is coming out there to fight for their sister. The father's coming out there to fight for their daughter. Like, what the hell is going on? Who is this? Oh, we Benjamin. Benjamin, what the hell is y'all doing, man? Why y'all taking why you taking my daughter? Why you taking my sister? Everybody's complaining. So this is what they're going to do. They're going to do this. They knew it, so they had already set it up for them. When they come to complain, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to read it again. It shall be when their fathers or their brethren come unto us to complain, that we will say unto them, be favorable unto them for our sakes, because we reserve not to each man his wife in the war. For ye did not give unto them at this time, that ye should be guilty. Right? So now here it is. They went out and made this thing with Benjamin to go do this. But when they come to complain, don't worry. We got you. We're going to negotiate. We're going to make peace with them. Right? Come on, brothers. Y'all didn't come up to war. Right? Y'all didn't come fight. You didn't give them of your daughters. You didn't make an oath. Because remember, it wasn't just Jabesh Gilead, right? These ones didn't come either. So that's what they're saying. Y'all didn't come up so that now you can give your daughters to them to be wives, right? We can't because we made the oath, but y'all never came up to Mizpah. So it ain't a problem. Don't worry. You ain't going to be killed. That's what they're saying. I'm going to read it again. Check out how they're wording this. It says, and it shall be when their fathers or their brethren come unto us to complain, that we will say unto them, be favorable unto them for our sakes, because we reserve not to each man his wife for the war. That was their oath. For ye did not give unto them at this time, that ye should be guilty, right? Y'all not going to be guilty of this, right? So if you were like the other ones, guess what could have happened to y'all? They could have been killed too. These men could have been like Jabesh Gilead, but they didn't do that. They said, listen, we're not going to do that. Just give them, be favorable to these brothers. Be favorable to them. So for them to say, well, dang, we didn't know about this oath. And because we didn't know about this oath and we didn't come up with them to go fight, they could have came and killed all of us. But now they need daughters, and this is like, you know, peacemaking agreement that you ain't got to worry about it. You ain't make the oath. You ain't got to die. Just give your daughters to them.
Protection of the so-called mafia gives you right to die. Hey, listen, okay? We're the reason why, nothing bad is happening. If you don't have our protection, something bad could happen. Right? On your way to work or something, right? Or your kids are going to school, something bad could happen. We're doing you a favor.
Yep. Verse 23. And the children of Benjamin did so and took them wives according to their number. So the 200 that didn't have wives now had wives, right? It says, of them that danced whom they caught, and they went and returned unto their inheritance and repaired the cities and dwelt in them. So there's parts of the cities that was burned and everything else. Now they can go and rebuild, start up new families, and regain their inheritance. Right? So now, if you were somebody who was like a scoffer of the Bible, or what is it, like a Egyptologist or whatever, if you read this chapter, right, somebody would use this chapter or the last two chapters to show how the Bible is just crazy, man. This is what the Bible's talking about. Y'all kidnapping people now. Y'all murdering people, and y'all supposed to be the Israelites. Y'all supposed to be the righteous ones. This supposed to be the holy book, right? They would use this without context, right? Without understanding. Because I remember I seen what's his name? Polite do that about, I think in Jeremiah, when the people was worshiping the Queen of Heaven. He's like, look, y'all worshiping the Queen of Heaven. You're supposed to be worshiping God, and God allows you to worship the Queen of Heaven. We're like, what are you talking about? They was going the hell off. They are going the hell off here, right? This is not, something that the Lord sanctioned for them to go do. This is what they did out of their own mind, out of their own hearts to contrive to do this, right? It says, and the children of Israel departed thence at that time, every man to his tribe and to his family, and they went out from thence, every man to his inheritance. In those days, it has to remind you, there was no king in Israel. Every man did that which was right in his own eyes, right? The Lord tells you in Proverbs 3rd chapter, lean not unto your own understanding, right? You can't lean on your own understanding. Your understanding will cause you to do things like this. You be right for 1 minute, then you be wicked another. You be right for 1 minute, and be wicked another. This is why the Lord even told Adam, you cannot eat of the tree of what? Good and evil, right? They did some good, they did evil, all mixed together, and it causes the downfall of a people. Required than Nabiyah.
That's what shows you the Bible is good. It doesn't pick and choose what it puts in. Whatever the story is, it puts it in there, but there's a reason why it puts it in there, so that you can learn. Even in Jeremiah 5:26, because even among my people are found wickedness. So it doesn't just hide the wickedness of Esau and then protect Esau as the good guy and never did wrong, because most actually admit. I mean, Israel.
Right.
We see it again all the time. You have to slow it down for people, like, because they're so used to their history, it's American history or whatever country they come from. It's just some of the good parts. We have to let them know, like, look, the Bible has to do that in the other. It's all there. For us mainly, and even for the other nations too. But I just want to read this in the law to show it's Christmas tree for the righteous. You know, you can only imagine, the story of those sisters, right? That grabbed up. It's kind of like, the movie you watch about the medieval times, where, like, war between countries, and capture women. The woman's just like, look at this guy. It's like a design for them. That was always the case, right? This is Exodus chapter 21, and verse 16. Exodus 21 and verse 16, it says, and he that killeth a man and selleth him, or he be found in his hand, he shall surely be put to death. Sorry, in the middle of Deuteronomy 24, correct? The Most High has laws for people. Just in case we didn't get the message, right? Deuteronomy 24, 7. So if a man be found stealing any of his brethren of the children of Israel and make a merchandise of them, or sell of them, and that thief shall die, and thou shalt put evil away from.
So for those who didn't hear those precepts, that was Exodus chapter 21 and verse 16, and then Deuteronomy chapter 24 and verse 7. Right, that deals with as far as for stealing a person, right? This is kind of what when it kidnapped and just took these women without their authority or without their fathers or their brothers' authority, under the auspices of these oaths that they made, and trying to make right what they did wrong, not what these brothers did in Shiloh, or this tribe did in Shiloh, but what they had done wrong to Benjamin. Now they had to suffer for that, right? And one would say, well, dag, imagine how these women felt, right? They was going out here celebrating the feast day, and all of a sudden, y'all all married right now. You leaving your land and you going to Benjamin. You going to a whole nother area, and now you got to be a wife to these brothers, right? That ain't right, right? We wouldn't condone it, but this is what they did back then, and the men from Shiloh, they gave into it because of what was now pressed upon them by the rest of the tribes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Fun. All right, so let's continue on. We're gonna continue on in Judges into Ruth. John gave me that look like, huh? Judges, is this the last chapter? Yeah. Yeah.
No, but it's funny because this story that we get to Ruth. So like it's pretty much everything always fought for us in the nation. Right? Every rise and fall of empire has always been about inheritance. Who gets what? Even today with all this talk about, Esau and then, raping, stealing, murder, plundering, deception, oppression, all stuff they bring with them. And we're talking about this now, mainly Israel, but then you see other nations talking about it as far as reparations, restitution, giving back what's stolen, how do we do this? It's always been about the same thing. It's always been about inheritance. What do you get down to? And these laws been written in America since we were brought here, and afterwards to make sure that we can. It's very difficult for us to hand what we have down to our kids. That's the drive behind white supremacy and all these other things, all these politics, these complex global issues. We get down to the meat of all of it. It's all about inheritance. What do you have? What do you don't have? What I can take for myself and what I can take for you. Everything will go
Con. So just for the sake of the teleconference line, because of the errors on it, everybody can't hear. Yeah, come when everybody's make a comment. So.
The only thing is, when we think about inheritance, what people in America or over the world, even us, because to realize is, yes, it's inheritance, but it's not ownership. So sometimes people confuse the inheritance with ownership. Like they own things, and that spirit of owning things, that's what's driving a lot of people crazy. Because they want to feel like they have something to fall out of them. Whereas everything belongs to the house. It's your house. We are your house. Right? All the property, everything that we have is just allotted for us to take care of it. It's not like our right to own it is ours. Everything belongs to your house. But when people want to have something and put their name on it, they want to say that's theirs. That's a problem.
And you see how they try to cause hypocrites too. Because let's say, oh, it's this rise and fall of empire. These guys are saying to take over your kingdom. You're going to do what we did, right? This is like, no, he said, what we do in the spirit of Christ and righteousness, to where the Most High said he wants Israel to have this, right? And to get it according to my word, according to that spirit of Christ. So that's what we're doing in Joshua, right? And parts of Judges when we're doing the righteous thing, So that's how we'll get that land. And we'll finally go back to, even though the population will be a lot smaller after the Third World War, the sons of Noah are going to be where they need to be, right? The nations that came out of Shem are going to be back where they're supposed to be. The nations that come out of Ham will be where they're supposed to be. The nations that came out of Japheth will be where they're supposed to be. And we'll be right there in the middle, right? As like the centerpiece in the land where the Most High is. And that goes back to Deuteronomy 32, I think 8, where it says the Most High divided the nations their inheritance. When he separated the sons of Adam, it says he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. So that's what we'll get back to and build again from there.
Come on, make sure y'all speak up too. Go ahead.
In Psalm 24:1.
Was that Psalms what?
24:1.
Psalm 24:1.
Right. The earth is the Lord in the fullness thereof. The earth is the Lord in the fullness thereof. It's like even the Most High parted the earth and give everybody their inheritance. Everybody should have in their mind, you have it for now, whereas the Most High can take it at any time. Right? The Most High can take it at any time if it's not managed, if it's not being managed correctly. Right? It's the same way when Yahushua said when he was leaving, the kingdom is like somebody was going in a far country and leave people to take care of his property. When he come back, he expect to get interest back in what he gave you. Right? So it's like you managing for him, but at the end, it's not yours. But if we manage as if it's ours, then we think we have ownership. We think we own it. We think it's ours, right? But actually, it's not. It's just because the Most High said, he parted the land according to the children of Israel. Everybody else, right, including Israel, right, we just managers for the Most High's property. It's like we don't orderly own anything. The Most High owns everything. But once we know that everything is for the Most High, then we will not rob and kill people because nobody can steal something that is not yours because it's the Most High.
Con.
What more to prove an understanding too? Before we on in Ruth. Psalms chapter 2. Psalms chapter 2.
Psalms chapter 2.
I'll read 7 to 9. In Psalm chapter 2 and verse 7, it reads, I will declare the decree, the Lord, or Yahweh has said unto me, Thou art my son, this day have I begotten thee. We're talking about Christ. He says in verse 8, Ask of me, and I shall give thee the heathen for thine inheritance, and the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession. It's showing what Khan was saying is true. Everything belonging to Christ. He says, verse 9, Thou shalt break them in with a rod of iron, thou shalt dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. So going into Christ and his ultimate rule, he's going to establish on the earth. Spiritually, he's already running things, right? The angels on the right and left hand of God already know Christ's authority. We see that even in the gospel, right? Christ will come on the scene, the unclean spirits will be like, oh, the Holy One of God, we know who you are. And he'll be like, shh, don't say it. They have to believe it based on the word. Don't tell them. But when the kingdom comes in, it'll be known not only in heaven, which they already know, it'll be known in earth who Christ is and who belongs to him.
And on the small scale, when Yahushua sent to get the donkey, if Yahushua have a donkey, everything is his. He know where everything is. He sent it, go tell the man, go get the donkey, because everything is his. He claimed authority right there and there on the small scale, but people don't really pay attention because everything is his property.
Con. All right, so you stopped at 9.
Yeah. Psalm 2:7.
Con. All right. So let's pick up in the book of Ruth, Judges. So this is Ruth chapter 1, verse 1. It says, Now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land, and a certain man of Bethlehem, Judah, went to sojourn in the country of Moab, he and his wife and his 2 sons, right? So now we're getting into, the storyline, I don't want to say controversial, but, it's a disparity amongst different camps about this woman, Ruth, right? But the first thing you realize when you read this chapter or this verse is that This is a part of Judges, because it says, now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled. So don't think of it as like chronological order where, okay, the judges is over now. Now we follow after the judges, we getting into Ruth. And then what comes after Ruth is Samuel and so forth and so on. No, this account took place during the times of the judges. We just don't know what particular judge or what particular portion around that time, but this was during the times of the judges. So that's why I kind of worded it a little bit the way I did at the end of Judges. Let's continue on in Judges. It was, being a little bit sarcastic because this happened during that time. So now here is a man from Bethlehem, Judah, who goes down into the country of Moab to sojourn there. Why? Because of the famine that was in the land. So the Lord had it where there was a famine. And of course, where there's a famine, you try to go to different places where you may find some food or sustenance. So they went down into the country of Moab, right? It says he, his wife, and his 2 sons. And the name of the man was Elimelech. It's a lot. Elimelech. And the name of his wife, Naomi. And the name of his 2 sons, Mahlon and Chilion, Ephrathites of Bethlehem, Judah. And they came into the country of Moab and continued there, right? So this says that these guys was Ephrathites, right? Ephrathites meaning what? Go to the book of Genesis chapter 35. They were not another tribe. These was Judites, but they lived or dwelt in a certain area. So when you go to Genesis chapter 35, I'm going to start at 15. Just in case if you ever hear this again, you just know that this is a certain place, right? It says Genesis chapter 35 and verse 15, and Jacob called the name of the place where God spake with him Bethel, or the house of God. That's what Bethel means. Verse 16, and they journeyed from Bethel, and there was but a little way come to Ephrath, and Rachel travailed, and she had hard labor, right? So now this is during the time when Rachel was about to deliver seed, that they came to a location that was near Bethel, near in that area where we sojourned, and it called it Ephrath. So anyone that lived or dwelt in Ephrath was called an Ephrathite, right? Not a totally another tribe, but this is a person that lives within that region, right? Sometimes you'll get some people who are confused when you see certain people who live in other lands, like Simon the Canaanite that you read about in the gospel. He was one of the disciples. So sometimes people will get confused and say, well, hold on. Christ had heathens in his as his apostles or disciples. No, he was just an inhabitant of that land, right? He wasn't of that people, right? Those of all who was followers of Christ, the original 12, these were all Israelites. So much so that Christ even told them, don't go into the ways of the heathen. Don't go where they at. Only go to your people, right? So here, just giving you the synopsis of what it meant as far as for them being an Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, in the area where Bethlehem is. These was Judites, and they went into Moab.
We always talk about when we teach, you say, before any nation was a land, it was a man, right? Easy to remember. So anytime you get that "ite," it's either referring to your ancestor or it's referring to a region where you come from, right? It's even in the Hebrew, it's like you'll see like the land being referred to like feminine, feminine, talk about Hayar or a place, and they'll say like a city is said to kind of birth its inhabitants. So we have to come from that particular city.
So as we read on, verse 3, and Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left and her 2 sons. Verse 4, and they took them wives of the women of Moab. The name of the one was Opah, and the name of the other Ruth. And they dwelt there about 10 years, right? So now here it is, after their father died, the 2 sons went, because they was dwelling in the country of Moab because of the famine. Usually where you dwell at, sometimes you go out there and you take women of the places where you're from, right? You got soldiers who go to Vietnam, they go to Germany, they go different places. And what happens? They go take women of the places that they're at and they raise up children by them, right? These children would be Israelite children, but they just have heathen wives, right? So now, again, this person here, these two women, Orpah and Ruth, right, which is of controversy as far as for, are these women Israelites or are they Moabites, right? And I've seen, one of the brothers did a video on it. You got different camps that'll say, Ruth is an Israelite, and then you have other camps who will say, that she's a heathen. And what's the big deal behind her being, a heathen, raising up seed to a Judite, right? So now, say again.
You tried to say the city that they were in was like part of Reuben's inheritance.
Uh-huh.
So that's where the argument comes in. This land that they were from, was it Reuben's at the time or not? Right? And whether it was or not, who was actually living there? Because like Reuben's plot of land in Moab, they border each other and they overlap.
Right.
Depending on who conquered who.
Right. Now, based on that piece, right? Because let's just say that is the case, right? That Reuben had that land and you had Moab there, right? And most people would say, well, Reuben owned it, so that means that it was Israelites there, right? Now, I'm just going to go back. Let me jump back a bit to the 11th chapter where we read some history as it pertains to our dealings with Moab and Ammon. Go to Judges chapter 11. We read this several months ago about this storyline. I'm going to read through it. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I want to set the table as far as for what things happened. Let me see where I'm going to start for. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. I want to make sure I get to the right part so I don't spend too much time. Bear with me, Israel. All right, so I'm going to start at, all right, I'm going to have to start at 1. Judges 11. That's why I couldn't find it, because I'm in Joshua. Verse 4, it says, and it came to pass in the process of time that the children of Ammon made war against Israel. And it was so that when the children of Ammon made war against Israel, the elders of Gilead went out to fetch Jephthah out of the land of Tob. And they said unto Jephthah, come and be our captain, that we may fight with the children of Ammon. So in short, here it is. Ammon now finds an occasional war against the children of Israel. Now, the context behind this is because they wanted to now reclaim some land, right? So now let's jump over the discussions that Jephthah had with them as far as for now, because they kicked him out and now they wanted to bring him back in, right? So now they had this, Judges chapter 11. And now I read from 4 down to 6. But now I'm going to jump to verse 12 to get the context of where we at. It says, and Jephthah sent messengers unto the king of the children of Ammon, saying, what hast thou to do with me, that thou art come against me to fight in my land? And the king of the children of Ammon answered unto the messengers of Jephthah, because Israel took away my land when they came out of Egypt from Arnon even unto Jabbok and unto Jordan. Now therefore restore those lands again peaceably. And Jephthah sent messengers unto the king of the children of Ammon and said unto him, thus saith Jephthah, Israel took not away the land of Moab, nor the land of the children of Ammon. But when Israel came up from Egypt and walked through the wilderness unto the Red Sea and came to Kadesh, then Israel sent messengers unto the king of Edom, saying, let me, I pray thee, pass through thy land. But the king of Edom would not hearken thereto, and in like manner they sent unto the king of Moab, but he would not consent unto Israel. He would not consent, and Israel abode in Kadesh. So Israel's like, look, we wanted safe passage. We went to Edom. They said, get out of here. We went to Moab. They said, get out of here. So we went and dwelt in another land. We didn't bother them, right? But the Most High told us to leave them alone. Verse 18. Then they went along through the wilderness and compassed the land of Moab and the land of Edom and the land of Moab, and came by the east side of the land of Moab and pitched on the other side of Arnon, but came not within the border of Moab, for Arnon was the border of Moab. And Israel sent messages unto Sihon, the king of the Amorites. These is Hamitic people, right? This is Ham now, who they're dealing with. And the king of Heshbon, and Israel said unto him, let us pass, we pray thee, through thy land into my place. But Sihon trusted not Israel to pass through his coast. But Sihon gathered all his people together and pitched in Jahaz and fought against Israel. And the Lord God of Israel delivered Sihon and all his people into the hand of Israel, and they smote them. So Israel possessed all the land of the Amorites, the inhabitants of that country. So now the Hamites had that region, right? That was Moab's inheritance, but Ham had that. They came to fight against us. It was like, yo, we got no beef. They said, nah, we got beef. So Israel, Mosiah said, okay, go take them out. And the king. We went and slaughtered the king and possessed that land. Who was in that land? Moab was in that land. So now Ammon is saying, yo, you took my land. No, we didn't take your land. You didn't have that land. The Amorites had that land. They fought against us, and my God gave it to us. Reading on. And they possessed all the coasts of the Amorites from Arnon even unto Jabbok, and from the wilderness even unto Jordan. So now the Lord God of Israel has disposed the Amorites before the people of Israel, and shouldest thou possess it? So he's like, look, if that was your land, you should have fought against the Amorites to go get it. But you didn't. But our God delivered that land that the Amorites had, which was really Moab's inheritance. They delivered it to us. We're going to hand it over to you for what, right? So this is what now happened back then. And then Ammon got upset, and they went to go fight against us, and we dealt with them, right? So now when we talk about the country of Moab in that place, there's history behind that. It's right bordering where Israel is. But that was not really intended for us to inherit, because the Lord said that's their land. But Ammon was coming up, the Japanese was coming up barking like, yo, we want our land, and now we couldn't fight against them, but we're going to come and fight against you. So we said, the hell with that, right? We ain't giving it to you, right? Because the Most High gave it to us. So now here is where we see the intermingling of Israel and Moab, right? So now we fast forward to other periods in the times of Judges, because this is in Judges 11. We read in Ruth 1:1 that the story that we're reading in the book of Ruth is what? In Judges, right? So we see in here now, here is Israel taking the land over from the Amorites, but it was really Moab, and now we have the dealings with the Moabites, right? So now, go to the book of Deuteronomy 21. Deuteronomy, the 21st chapter. I stopped at, I jumped. Remember, I jumped. So I read from Judges 11:4 down to 6. Then I read from 12 down to 23.
Deuteronomy, what was that?
We're going to Deuteronomy chapter 21. And verse 10. Somebody read that Bible Kashah while I write these in.
This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 21, and verse 10. When thou goest forth to war against these thine enemies, and the Lord thy God hath delivered them into thine hands, and thou hast taken them captive, and seest among the captives a beautiful woman, and hast a desire unto her, that thou wilt have her to thy wife.
So stop, right? So now here it is when we go to war, and we're in the times of war, and we go into a region, and you find a heathen woman that's what? Beautiful. Israel ain't going to take no ugly woman. The funny thing, though, I say that sarcastically. Sometimes I be looking at Jake, some of these Jake brothers, and you look at these Edomite, these heathen women they be taking, you be like, come on, brother. Like, if you're going to do it, like, I would have given you the benefit of the, like, some of them be just looking like, come on, man. right? The Lord said a beautiful woman taking some bust down, right? This ain't a good look. What you say?
Thanks, brother.
Taking that off our hands. But this is in the law, right? And like we said in the class last night or this night, sometimes people use these verses to justify their own lust, because here it is in the law. When you go into an area and you taking war and you find a woman that's beautiful of them, this is what you can do. We ain't at war right now. These brothers are talking about something. Yeah, I'm gonna go find a Moabite woman or whatever. You ain't at war, brother. You in oppression. What are you talking about? And you going out here doing this? You're trying to use the scriptures for your own benefit and your own gain. No, stop it. Right? We're trying to build the nation. Right? And I'm gonna touch on that in a minute in the book of Nehemiah. But read on.
Okay. This is Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 12. Then thou shalt bring her home to thine house, and she shall shave her head and pare her nails.
Come on.
And she shall put the remnant of her captivity from off her.
The raiment, or her clothing, or her attire, right? Keep going.
And shall remain in thine house.
And
bewail her father and her mother a full month. And after that thou shalt go to her and be her husband, and she shall be thy wife.
And she shall be thy wife, right? This is a heathen woman. That now this is the law. This is a stipulation of what was supposed to happen, right? Give her time. She got to take off her clothes. She ain't following after her guys no more. She's going to be following our customs, our law, right? And then you're going to go into her and try to raise up seed, right? So this is not in the law. So now when we jump back to Ruth chapter 1, right? And we kind of reread this again in verse 4. It says, and they took them wives of the women of Moab. So it seems like, oh, they took them wives. See, it's the wives. And they say concubines. But the law just said wives. It just says if you go and you find these women that's of a heathen, that's beautiful, do this stipulation, and then you're going to take them to be a wife, right? Now, to further kind of add more clarity on this woman being a heathen woman, let's understand the dynamics. I'm going to cheat a little bit, right? Let's jump forward. Go to Ruth chapter 4. Ruth chapter 4. And I'm going to start from verse 13. Ruth 4 and 13. You can read that, Con.
Okay. All right. This is the book of Ruth, chapter 4, verse 13. So Boaz took Ruth, and she was his wife. And when he went unto her, the Lord gave her conception, and she bore a son.
Come on.
And the woman said to Naomi, blessed be the Lord, which have not left thee this day without a kinsman.
Come on.
That his name may be famous in Israel.
Come on.
And he shall be unto thee a restorer of thy life, and a nourisher of thine old age, for thy daughter and for thy daughter-in-law, which loveth thee, which is better to thee than 7 sons.
Right. So now once this conception happened, honor, this was a good thing, because now remember she lost her husband and she's about to lose her sons, as we're going to read on further along in the story. But again, I said we're cheating because we're trying to make the point or the clarity about this woman, Ruth. Not only Ruth, but the other one, Orpah, right? Well, who are these women? So now it says, listen, this guy has done this great thing, and now he's been a restorer and a nourisher unto you. Now check this out. Read.
I've born him. And Naomi took the child and laid it in her bosom, and became nurse unto it.
So Naomi took the child that was born of Ruth, and she took it to nurse and rear and take care of. Why didn't Ruth take care of this child? Right? If she's an Israelite, why wouldn't she take care of her own child? But now Read on.
Verse 17. And the woman, her neighbors, gave it a name, saying, there is a son born to Naomi.
What?
And they called his name Obed. He is the father of Jesse, the father of David.
So they said that there was a son born to Ruth. It says what? But did Naomi have a son? Ruth had the son. They took the baby from Ruth, gave it to Naomi, and everyone declared that Naomi has born a son.
The problem is when people limit the Most High to just one nation as opposed to the Most High owns everybody. He can use anybody for his own good to accomplish his purpose. Then you have a problem because now you're gonna say everything that the Most High do got to do it with Israel. Everything the Most High do got to do. Now it becomes a problem. You limit the Most High.
Right.
I mean, he's not the creator anymore. You can't use all the nations that he created. That he says everything is his and the earth is his.
Right. See, the problem usually what happens is sometimes, you know, when you look at secular churches, mainstream churches, they like to use certain things or aspects out of the Bible to stand on. The heathens can be saved.
Right.
The heathens are a part of this, right? Look at Ruth. Look at Ruth, right? But Ruth, when you look at it, was not dealing like she was of the nation of Israel based on what happened here. Her son was taken from her and given to Naomi, right? And now that son was being called the son of Naomi. Where else did this happen? Let's go to the book of Genesis, chapter 30. That too. Let's go to Genesis chapter 30. Actually, I'm going to start at Genesis 29.
Going to the promise, right?
Hmm?
The promise that the Most High made.
No, that's what I think he was talking about. This is Genesis chapter 29 and verse, I'm going to start at 28.
This is the book of Genesis, chapter 29 and verse 28. And Jacob did so and fulfilled her week, and he gave him Rachel, his daughter, to wife also.
Right. So Jacob went to Laban based on the order that was given to him to go find a wife. He saw Rachel. He wanted Rachel, but Laban tricked him and gave him Leah. So he had Leah as his wife, and then now he has Rachel as his wife. Read.
Verse 29. And Laban gave him Rachel, his daughter, Bilhah, his handmaid, to be her maid.
Right. So Laban had handmaids. That was his servants, these heathen women, these concubines or whatever that was under him. When Jacob came to take his daughters to wife, Leah took Bilhah, right? I'm sorry, Leah took Zilpah, when you read further up, to be now, she was his handmaid, now she's her handmaid. Rachel now is being given to Jacob. He takes Bilhah, who was his handmaid, now she's her handmaid. We don't,
Wasn't both of them Israel?
Who? Who? Now let's check it out. We're going to read, right? Because you don't just transfer your own people like that, right? We don't operate like that within Israel. But now check out what happens. Read it on.
This is 29 and 30.
Come on.
30. And he went and also unto Rachel, and he loved also Rachel more than Leah,
Come on.
and served with him yet 7 years other years.
Come on.
And when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. And Leah conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Reuben. For she said, surely the Lord hath looked upon my affliction. Now therefore my husband will love me.
Come on.
And she conceived again and bore a son, and said, because the Lord hath heard that I was hated, he hath therefore given me this son also.
Mm-hmm.
And she called his name Simeon.
Come on.
And she conceived again and bore a son, and said, now this time will my husband be joined unto me,
Mm-hmm.
because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore was his name called Levi. And she conceived again and bore a son. And she said, now will I praise the Lord. Therefore she called his name Judah, and left barren.
Right. So Leah was the first daughter, the first wife that was fruitful, that was having all these children. Right. The Most High knew that Jacob hated or didn't love Leah as much as Rachel. But to now put this in perspective, the Lord said, you know what? I'm going to now give him his first children through Leah. Right. But now let's get to Rachel. Read the 30th verse.
Okay. This is Genesis chapter 30 and verse 1. And when Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, Rachel envied her sister and said to Jacob, give me children, or else I die.
Right. So she like, listen, you know, that was the customary thing of a woman in the past. What? To do what? To raise up seed unto her husband. Right. So she didn't want to be one of those women that was barren. That wasn't like a normal thing or something that people just accepted. Like today, you got a lot of women out there who just single. You know, they like, you know, I don't want to have our kids. Some are like spiritual eunuchs. That's fine. Others who want to be with a husband, who want to have children, and I can't. So now it becomes a thing, a driving factor in some women that they want to have kids. Now read on. What happens?
Verse 3.
Verse 2.
Oh, excuse me. This is Genesis chapter 30 and verse 2. And Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel. And he said, am I in God's stead, or have withheld from thee the fruit of thy womb?
Yeah, because she like, listen, I got to have kids or else I'm going to die. Jacob like, yo, I'm trying. Like, who am I? Am I like the Most High? I can control what comes out of the fruit of your womb. So he got upset because now she was laying this on him. So now there's some tension in. Read.
Verse 3. And she said, behold, my maid Bilhah, go in unto her, and she shall bear upon my knees, that I may also have children by her.
So now here it is. Bilhah is Rachel's handmaid, but Rachel say, go to my handmaid and raise up children by her, but she gonna bear children for me. That's her wording, right? So now, if this Bilhah is a Israelite, why is that not looked at? That Bilhah is the one that's raising up seed to Jacob, right? We do that type of thing with heathen women. Like, you know, you're not on the same level as Israelite women. We above all nations, right? So it would have given her that title too, given her that, you know, that honor that, listen, she raised up seed to Jacob, and this is Jacob's son. But Rachel knew that she wasn't on that level. Rachel knew that wasn't the case. Look, Bilhah, go to my husband. You're going to chambers. You lay down. We're going to see what happens in a few weeks if you're pregnant. And then when 9 months happens, when the child is born, that's like my child. Read.
Verse 4. And she gave him Bilhah, her husband, to wife. And Jacob went unto her.
Gave her Bilhah, her handmaid.
Her handmaid.
Come on.
And Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son.
Come on.
And Rachel said, God hath judged me, and hath also heard my voice, and have given me a son. Therefore called she his name Dan.
Rachel didn't conceive. Rachel never birthed anybody. But Rachel said, the Most High has just blessed me and given me a son, right? Gave me a son. So now here it is, understanding that we view, the Most High looks at the Israelite man and the Israelite woman differently when it comes to the royal patriarchal lineage, as far as for who's really going to get these titles, right? So back here, Rachel and Leah had handmaids, but those women who bore those sons was really now given to Leah and Rachel, even though those women actually laid down and had sex. Those women actually went through childbearing and bore those children. They was now the ones that now reared them up, and they were given that title.
nowadays they call them surrogates.
Surrogate mother.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like a surrogate mother. Right? So now I went here because the way in which it's worded here with Rachel, then you read on down, Leah, remember, because we left off from the 29th chapter, Leah left off from childbearing. So what is Leah going to do when you read down? She gives him Zilpah. And then Zilpah goes and has the rest of the tribes. Now, when people look at this and compare it to Ruth, right? And they say, hold on, Ruth was the one who bare David or Obed and Jesse and all them. She was that great-great-great-grandmother. See, the nations got a shot. The nations got a shot, right? They looking at we in there because this royal man, one of his mothers is a Moabite, right? So that's a big deal. But here, when we look at the 12 tribes, these 12 tribes, all of them wasn't through women of the kindred of Jacob and Laban. No, these was handmaids. They don't get that same honor, right? We don't really consider Bilhah and Zophah as, one of the matriarchal people like that. No, we think of Rachel and Leah. These was handmaids, right? They now were following the customs. They were following what their husband and their, mistress was telling them to do, keeping the order like the Most High intended for us to do. Whether we are Israelite or you got servants there, they got to follow that. Go to the book of Esther real quick. Go to the book of Esther.
I haven't watched the show, but I wonder if there might be some inspiration here for the Handmaid's Tale. There might be some inspiration name-wise why they named that show. Read throughout the section.
Okay, come.
One of the things I know what the show, the concept, is inspiration in this idea, this concept, why they named it the Handmaid's Tale.
Oh yeah, come. So this is Esther chapter 8. And verse 17. Esther chapter 8, verse 17. It says, and in every province and in every city, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness, a feast and a good day. And many of the people of the land became Jews, for the fear of the Jews fell upon them. Right? So now during the time of this captivity, when they came out to go fight against Israel, the Most High had switched it on them, tricked Haman into falling victim to his own conspiracy, and we had the power now to go and destroy everybody else that was going to come against us. And then in turn, it says all the people of the land, or many of the people of the land, which are heathen, it says they became Jews. What does that mean? They became Jews.
Started following Jews' customs.
They what?
Started following the Hebrews' customs.
They started following our customs. And what else?
And
who was they worshiping?
forsaking their God.
Forsaking their God and worshiping our God. Because to be a Jew, a Hebrew, you got to keep the commandments of the Most High and worship the Most High and him only. So if you are now looking at the heathens becoming Jews, this is what they're following, right? This is what they're doing at the times of this captivity, for a period of time, of course, right? It didn't last forever. But we see that this happened here, happened also during a little bit of time during the Greeks, when Antiochus, the Most High, plagued him. He changed that around for a period of time, that the peoples now gave homage to us. They took away all the taxes and gave us victuals and gave us gold and silver and things of that nature. And they began to worship the Most High at that time. So it's not far-fetched to say you got some Moabites who these men went and took as wives, right? During the Judges, when we went and took down the Amorites and we took their land, went and took their women, and we had kids by them. Now, the key component into this was that they were supposed to become like us. There's a problem that sets in when these women don't become like us. Go to the book of Nehemiah 13. Actually, I don't even want 13. I don't want 13. I want bear with me 1 second. Yes, 13. Esther chapter 8 and 17. Let me make sure, because I didn't write it down myself. Eight and 17. Now we're going to go to Nehemiah chapter 13 and verse 23. So in Nehemiah chapter 13, verse 23, it says, in those days also I saw Jews that had married wives of Ashdod, of Ammon, and of Moab, right? So here during Nehemiah's time, when they're coming back from the captivity to rebuild, we noticed that you had a lot of men that went and married these heathen women. What was the problem? It says in verse 24, and their children spake half in the speech of Ashdod, and could not speak in the Jews' language, but according to the language of each people, right? So these brothers was very keen on the purity of us rebuilding our homeland, right? And we want to keep our own culture. How are we going to have men who got families and they don't even speak our language? So now it's going to dilute our own Hebrew dialect because they don't know it. The kids that's growing up, they're going to be speaking the other nation's language. Can't have that. Verse 25, and I contended with them and cursed them and smote some of them and plucked off their hair and made them swear by God, saying, ye shall not give your daughters unto their sons, nor take their daughters unto your sons as for yourselves. Did not Solomon, king of Israel, sin by these things? Yet among many nations there was no king like him, who was beloved of his power, and Yahweh made him king over all Israel. Nevertheless, even him did outlandish women cause to sin. These heathen women called outlandish. Shall we then hearken unto you to do all this great evil, to transgress against our power in marrying strange women or strange wives? So this was not something new, right? It became a thing where we went out there and we married these Ammonite women, these Moabite women, and the women of Ashdod. Even today, you got some Israelite brothers who'd want to do what? Marry the women of Ammon and Moab, saying, yeah, what did he say? These women, they don't beef like how I like Judah and them doing. They submissive, they don't give you any back talk, this, that, and the third. I want to go get with them women, right? That's the logic behind it. And that is the second and third order effects that what comes of it. Because you so keen to want to go and deal with them, you're not doing it like we just read in Deuteronomy 21. You ain't coming and saying, listen, you got to leave your God, you got to shave your head, because all of that is humbling them on a physical and spiritual level, right? To have a woman shave her head, that's why you see it in Corinthians 11 chapter, that if a woman don't have her head covered, is as if she was shorn, because that is shameful for a woman to shave off her beauty. They got to do that. You ain't shaving off an Israelite woman's hair. You're not doing that because that's not in the law. But those women have to come in recognizing that they are not on the same level as Israelite women. Pare your nails. You see these women going to the nail salon, they're getting these nice little nails and all that stuff. Take all that stuff off. Take your hair off, all that stuff off. Your clothes, take that off. You ain't wearing that Ammonite coat, the Komodo and all this stuff. You ain't wearing that. You ain't having that up in here to influence our people. Yeah, all that. Y'all taking all that stuff off, and y'all gonna now fall in under us, right? Y'all gonna be second tier to Israelite women, even though you married to an Israelite man, right? You got to look at her as if she's your mistress, right? So now, when you read further on in Nehemiah, these men were very, advantageous. And they removed the women and the children by these Israelite men out of the land. They said, y'all got to go, right? And you would say, but these are Israelite children. Yeah, but these are Israelite children who can't talk the language. We're not going to have that right now. We got to go and establish order first. Let them go learn somewhere else and then maybe come back later on. Right? It doesn't say that, but that's kind of the thinking where you kick out your own Israelite sons and daughters or whoever else and only keep those who can speak the language and know the customs and things of that nature.
Right. I mean, as I'm hearing you breaking down the scripture, it's funny that you have to do that. But the simple thing about Ruth is the Most High preserved Ruth so that he can bring the lineage of Yahushua as he promised to Abraham. I mean, it's simple as that, but for some people, you have to go through all the scriptures, to break it down, to make it seem. And it is as simple as that. Because the Most High promised Abraham he's going to do something, and he preserved Ruth to do it, but now the key is who raised the child. So you got to, that's the pattern that you are. Who raised the child? Who have the mind of the child? Who's going to input in the mind the education, how you should go so that he can fulfill the Most High promises based on how the promise is going to come out of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's why it says Naomi had the child, because Naomi raised the child because she was an Israelite and Ruth was a heathen. And even her, she understood Israelite custom. That's the reason why the Most High would humble her spirit, where she would do everything according to what Israelite culture is.
Mm-hmm.
And she did not even buck up against, as you read in the story, buck up against Israelite culture. She actually go and dare to tell her, just go and you can pick up stuff from our people. Just be among them. It's okay. She knew that her place wasn't there.
Right.
But I mean, you have to go through all that to break it down, because our culture, the way we build up, we put the Most High in the box as if the Most High cannot do anything with what is. Everything is his.
Mm-hmm.
But again, he did not choose a man of the other nation to be father to Yahushua as he promised. He actually did exactly what he did, dealing with the men.
Okay.
As the Most High said, your ways are not my ways, right? I mean, the thinking of the Most High, he sees everything beyond what we can see, so it's the same way he uses Moses as Pharaoh's daughter to raise up Moses in Pharaoh's house, and turn around, and Moses came back to take down Pharaoh.
Because
So it's the same way he uses it, and for us, we cannot understand why would he do that. I mean, you could question and say, well, so I'm here to go and say, well, Ruth, she has her own book. You know what I mean? So I thought this was an Israelite book. How could she have her own book, an Israelite book? And she's a Moabite.
that's the problem. We limit the Bible as
right? If she's a Moabite and she's not of the Jews, why would she have her own book, an Israelite book? And so this is how people perceive it, like you said, to put Most High in a box. Like everything is his. He could do whoever he wants to use to make his will come to pass.
Mm-hmm.
And he's gonna do it, and he said it in the books, and he's not gonna deviate. That's the good thing about it. And that's exactly why they did. But just because a heathen come in, and then we Israelite, we love being Israelite, and I wouldn't want to be anybody else, because that's what the Most High chose. But at the same time, we can limit the Most High as to Israelite, because everybody is.
I mean, we just saw in the last chapter that Benjamin was almost wiped out.
Right.
How did Benjamin become still here today? The rest of these tribes went and murdered one half of tribe of Manasseh and took their women, and then they went and kidnapped women from another tribe, right? But Benjamin sustained themselves. So certain things happened during the times of the judges that was all over the place, right? That just didn't, seem logical as to why some of these things happening. But now it started off with the first verse. This was during the times of the judges, right? Where these men went and took these women, right? At the time where everything was crazy. However, these women were a bit different, right? Even amidst all of that, they were like what you read in Esther. They were like what you read in Genesis 30, where these women were under the command of an Israelite according to the law, according to the order. This is how it's supposed to be, right? It's not that we don't really want us to be in the kingdom, and we go out in the kingdom and we go through somewhere and we see doggone Moab still cooking dogs. We're gonna be like, what the hell is this? It's gonna cause you to be in disdain. It's gonna cause you to be like, what the hell is this? Don't you know you're supposed to be serving the Most High? All right, we got to deal with you now, right? It's gonna be fun, but it's also gonna be heart-wrenching to even see it happening, right? It might be your dog, it might be my dog. They went and starved, like, what the heck is my dog at? And I'm looking, I'm smelling smoke. I'm like, man, I know you ain't take my dog, because they still gonna be serving their gods in the kingdom as well as the Most High that we're supposed to be doing, like how we are now. All Israel is supposed to be serving the Most High, but the majority of us ain't. The heathen is supposed to be serving the Most High in the kingdom. The majority of them ain't, and that's what's going to be the dynamic then. But the Lord is doing this here. But now, one more before we go back. I was cheating a little bit. Go to the Ruth. So go back to chapter 4. Some of these wordings is interesting. Go back to Ruth chapter 4.
Well, that,
You know, it's the scriptures where Most High for now we can identify servant. You need that, you know. If you don't put in the right
My servant, mine anointed,
yeah.
right?
Cyrus too, eh?
Cyrus, mine anointed.
Like, man, you know, Israelite.
and the brother Flag,
Yeah, but I think a lot of the confusion come in because when you read scriptures like Deuteronomy 7 and 3 and 4, when Mosai tell us that we should not take a wife of the other nation because you're gonna continue away from following me. And then you read these other verses saying, well, it's a wife of the other nation. So I think this is where the confusion comes when you read like that.
So now go to Ruth chapter 4, verse 9.
Oh, can I say something to what we just brought out? Yeah, because when it comes to the 7 nations of the Canaanites, we weren't supposed to let any of them survive. And we didn't do that. They ended up being a thorn on our side. We're supposed to cut all of them off. But when it came to the nations outside of them, outside of our land, we would proclaim peace unto them first and the rules of the laws according to war. If they acknowledged us and paid tribute, cool. If they fought against us, then we would go to war with them. We weren't to utterly destroy them, just the Canaanites. But then, you know, we're supposed to marry them either. But definitely we're not supposed to marry Canaanites. But, you know, we're supposed to marry the other nations either. But Canaanites is a little different. People just totally just cut them off.
Right. So this is Ruth chapter 4 and verse 9. Right? This is Ruth 4 and 9. Like I said, we jumped ahead, but we're just trying to address the distinction of Ruth, right? This is Ruth 4 and 9. It says, and Boaz said unto the elders and unto all the people, ye are witnesses this day that I have brought all that was Elimelech's and all that was Chilion's and Mahlon's of the hand of Nomi. Moreover, Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of Mahlon, have I purchased to be my wife, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance, that the name of the dead be not cut off from among his brethren and from the gate of his place. Ye are witnesses this day, right? So the way in which Boaz classifies it, he says, I went and got all of this and I purchased this Moabitess for my wife. The wording is interesting, but got to look into the concordance of how he purchased her to be his wife, right? Because when you look at purchase, it's like acquiring, buying, you know, that type thing. All right. But again, I'm just going ahead. We'll deal with it when we get to that point. Now, let's go back. Let's jump back into where we are in Ruth chapter 1. So we left off at verse 4. No, we left off at 5. All right, I'm going to reread verse 5. So this is Ruth chapter 1 and 5. And Mahlon and Chilion died also, both of them, and the woman was left of her 2 sons and her husband. So she had no husband, no sons. Then she arose with her daughters-in-law that she might return from the country of Moab. For she had heard in the country of Moab how that the Lord had visited his people in giving them bread, right? So remembering in the first verse that there was a famine in the land. They left their land to go into Moab. So while they're there in Moab, after she's lost everyone's died, she gets knowledge that there's now food being now provided in the land. So she's about to leave the country of Moab and go back to her own land within Judah. So it says in verse 7, wherefore she went forth out of the place where she was, and her two daughters-in-law with her, and they went on the way to return unto the land of Judah. And Naomi said unto her two daughters-in-law, go, return each to her mother's house. The Lord deal kindly with you as he have dealt with me, as he have dealt with the dead and with me, right? So as she's now leaving, she said, listen, you need to go back home. Go back to your mothers and deal with them. You know, Lord bless you, you know, that you dealt with my sons, same way he dealt with me, you know, you don't have any ties with me no more. Go on your own. Verse 9, the Lord grant you that ye may find rest, each of you in the house of her husband. Then she kissed them, and they lifted up their voice and wept. So she's giving them leave that your husband is dead. You can go find somebody else. Go find rest somewhere else with another man. Y'all still young, right? Y'all can go and remarry, right? And when she said this, they felt sorry for her and they wept, because now there's kind of now really a breaking up of the family, because they was dealing with him. You know, once you deal with somebody, you live with somebody, you kind of build a bond, right? So they built the bond, and they're realizing that now the cord is about to be cut. I really don't have no ties, and she's telling me I can go. Verse 10, and they said unto her, surely we will return with thee unto thy people, both Oprah and Ruth, saying, nah, we're going back to the land of Judah. We want to be with you, right? You like our mother, right? Verse 11, and Naomi said, turn again, my daughters. Why will you go with me? Are there yet any more sons in my womb that they may be your husbands? So now she's like, what are you doing? Y'all should go. Why are you following me? You know how old am I? I can't bear no more sons. If I am able to bear sons, what you gonna do? You gonna wait around for them to get an age? And what's going on? Like, go, leave, right? Yeah. Verse 12, turn again, my daughters, go your way, for I am too old to have an husband. And if I should say I have hope, if I should have an husband also tonight, and should also bear sons, will ye tarry for them till they were grown? Would you stay for them from having husbands? Nay, my daughters, for it grieved me much for your sakes that the hand of the Lord is gone out against me. So now she's looking at this as to say, look, you know, the Most High cursed me. And I can understand how a mother would feel. Her husband dies and her two sons die, and there's nothing left of them. She's the only one left. Y'all need to get away from me, right? And if I did have hope that I was going to have a husband again one day, that I was going to have children again one day, are you going to wait along? You going to wait for that? If I was to get pregnant tonight, you know how much time got to go by? You going to wait around for that? Come on, y'all go. Leave me, seeing how the Most High has cursed me right now, right? It says, verse 14, and they lifted up their voice and wept again. And Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clave unto her, right? So they started crying again, and then the one came and kissed her mother-in-law, the other was holding on to her, right? And she said, behold, thy sister-in-law is gone back unto her people and unto her gods. Return thou after thy sister-in-law. So these was not two sister siblings. These was just two women that were sisters as Moabite sisters. So the one, when she kissed her goodbye. All right, I'm out, right? The other one clave, like how you read in Isaiah 14, and they shall cleave to the house of Israel. That's what she did. She clave to the house of Israel. She didn't want to leave.
It's a tough verse, because like you said, the brothers did the breakdown. They did a good job. They did, you know, a nice dig. They used like biblical, sources. They used the Atlas and stuff like that. So it wasn't like a bunch of, other books. But this is right here. It makes a strong case.
Right.
It's a strong case right here.
Right, because it's saying that.
I'm just saying, I'm dealing with that brother.
Exactly, yeah. I know what you're talking about. But right here, it's saying that the sister went to go serve her other gods, right? Not the Most High God, but these other gods, right? We just read, we seen where, these men was going to hell off, but they still knew the Most High, right? Even in their wickedness, they still did that. But now here it is, a woman who's following after Naomi, she had other gods already, or they had other gods already. She left to go back to her own, nativity.
So this is like, you say it's supposed to be Reuben, he's the land of Reuben.
Right.
She's potentially an Israelite.
Then Reuben would be serving these other gods as well.
Exactly.
Right.
To the point where Naomi didn't understand why she clave unto her. She did not understand why she clave unto Naomi. It's the Most High's plan was purpose for her to follow.
Exactly. Because again, to that point, if this was a daughter of Israel, it would be understandable why she would stay with them. It wouldn't be a big deal. Right? She could go, you as a tribe, she's a woman. It's not like she was a man and the man was now coming to Judah and he wants to get a wife and live there, right? And gain inheritance. You can't do that, right? This is a woman. She can go in somewhere else and get a man that's in Judah and still raise up seed to that man and live there. Why was it that she was kicking them out, right? They can go wherever they want. It's like, no, go back to your own house.
I'm going back home. Stay right here.
Exactly.
That's your home. Why you want to come with me? There's going to be a lot of problems with back home. You don't even use to our people like that. Just stay.
So I'm going to read verse 15 again. It says, and she said, behold, thy sister-in-law is going back to her people and to her gods. Return thou after thy sister-in-law, meaning you should follow her. Verse 16. And Ruth said, entreat me not to leave thee or to return from following after thee. For whither thou goest, I will go, and where thou lodgest, I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people, and thy power shall be my power, right? Showing that there's a distinction that she didn't want to go back to her people. She wanted to stay with her and Israel. And the God that they worship, she wanted to now worship, right? She was going to be just like an Esther, become a Jew. Following the gods, following the customs, following the law. So this is now that signifying point where Naomi is realizing that she's like that servant that now, when you read in Deuteronomy, that now is allowed to leave from their master, but don't want to leave. And the Lord said, okay, this is what you got to do. You got to go take a thing and thrust it through their ear, right? So that's going to be a token to say this person wants to stay with you forever, pretty much, right? So now this is what's going on. Verse 17, where thou diest, will I die, and there will I be buried. The Lord do so to me, and more also, if aught be death, but part thee and me. So she's like, listen, man, whatever happened to you, it's going to happen to me. I'm going to be, if anything happened to you, I'm going to be right there with you. If you die, I die. I'm going to stand in the line of fire with you. Right? So she really was now tied to Naomi. Verse 18, when she saw that she was steadfastly minded to go with her, then she left speaking unto her. When she realized that there was no convincing her that she should go follow Orpah and go back to her own people, she was like, all right, well, damn, I ain't gonna, all right. She was there 10 years with her, right? She knew her 10 years as a daughter-in-law. So she's like, all right, I didn't think you was this, tied to us and our people. I thought you would leave and go back to your own, but all right, cool. Let's go.
What comes before the same as far as all things we know the Most High makes you think of the movie with Samson. He was saying, get me a wife of the Philistines. And parents were like, no. And they said they didn't know it was of the Lord, but the Most High had an occasion against the Philistines. So it's a bigger plan at work.
Gun. Exactly.
That's not a good example. I'm saying that's not a good example too.
Gun. So verse 19, a few more verses. It says, so they too went until they came to Bethlehem. And it came to pass when they were come to Bethlehem that all the city was moved about them. And they said, is this Naomi? So now they're seeing Naomi come back from being away for a long period of time. And they looking, it's like, Yo, is that her? Whoa, we ain't seen her in I don't know how long. Blast from the past. Oh man, so now it's kind of like, you know, a rekindling of family and things, right? So they're making a much to do about Naomi after they left from the time of the famine and went into Moab, right? Verse 20, and she said unto them, call me not Naomi, call me Mara, for the Almighty have dealt very bitterly with me, right? So now Naomi is her name. And when they was like, yo, is that Naomi? She's still feeling hurt because she feels that the Most High is against her because her husband and her 2 sons have died. And now there's no inheritance for either one of them, her husband or her children. So this is like a curse unto me. So she said, don't call me that. Call me Mara, which is like Mary, or in the Hebrew, Mariam, right? The understanding of the word means what? Bitter. And that's what she said. Don't call me Naomi because the Most High have dealt bitterly with me, right? That's what the name means. So now we see the mind state of where Naomi's at as she comes back home. She's in disdain right now. Verse 21, I went out full, and the Lord have brought me home again empty. Why then call ye me Naomi, seeing Yahweh have testified against me, and the Almighty have afflicted me, right? So here it is. Sometimes you don't know what we don't know. We don't know why it is that the Most High had to take Elimelech and Malam and Chilion the way that he did, without allowing them to now continue on, right? Sometimes, like you read in John chapter 9 about the man that was born blind, who sinned, this one or that one, and the Lord says sometimes he has some things like this happens to manifest his power and his will, right? That happened to manifest Yahushua because he was going to now come and heal that man of his blindness. He was going to be used as a vessel to now highlight Yahushua's power. Now, one would say, well, dag, a man had to be blind majority of his life for that until that happened? That's messed up, man. That's messed up. What kind of God is that? Right? And that's where, again, we don't think on or comprehend on the Most High's level. Because we don't know, right? Let's just consider and say that man in St. John, the 9th chapter, he had to go through that, and Yahushua was the one that came and gave him sight. Now he goes about his life, he can see. Who knows what that man or who that person really is and what he's going to get in the kingdom? Nobody knows. That guy ain't going to be a doorman. That guy's probably got to sit at the table. You don't know for what he had to endure, right? We can't think on the Most High's level to understand the dynamics of how some things happen, the previous effects or the things that come after.
And the beautiful thing about it is we still in the position to question him as if he didn't make us. Right? We can still question the situation.
All right.
Why did it do that? That's being autonomous, where he created you can still question him. Yes, he's confident about what he does. You know, still allowing you to question him.
Right.
But he knows his purpose.
Right.
That doesn't deter him from being the Most High.
Right. And it's beautiful how the Lord allowed that interaction with Uriel and Ezra to highlight that. Right. As I say, you know, man, you're gonna have these thoughts and these questions. Those who are in the truth, you may have these thoughts and these questions. So let me temper you a bit. I'm going to highlight Ezra, who's a righteous prophet, priest at that time. I'm going to use him to help his interaction discussions teach you, right? Things written aforetime was for our learning. So now we learn and seeing that what he even threw at Ezra, you know, I ain't on that level either. I would have probably said the same thing that Ezra did. So you know what? All right, let me back up a bit. You know, if he couldn't, all right, I'm not going to go there. I just have to take it as is and know that the Most High has a perfect plan that's going to be executed in his time. Nabiyah.
I'm not sure if you said it, but in the Hebrew for Naomi, we wrote down Mara, where that name comes from. Naomi comes from like light or something. But
Kun.
it's, you know, trying to say, okay, why is she saying don't call me Naomi? So even her name, her human name Naomi means pleasant.
Mm-hmm.
She's talking about her affliction. It's like, no, her life hasn't been pleasant.
Exactly.
Or the life.
Fun. So we read 21 again. I went out full, and Yahweh had brought me home again empty. Why then call you me Naomi, seeing that the Lord have testified against me, and the Almighty have afflicted me? So Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, with her, which returned out of the country of Moab, and they came to Bethlehem in the beginning of the barley harvest. Right? So we know during the time that they came back to Bethlehem, Judah, was when? What time of the year was this when she wanted to be called Mary, but I'm gonna say Naomi. What time was this when Naomi and Ruth came into Bethlehem? It says in the barley harvest. When would that be? Who remembers? Barley harvest. What high holy day is around the time of the barley harvest? You got it? Passover. So if it's during the time of the Passover, that's in the beginning of the year, right? Around the time of the new year, in the springtime, the beginning of the spring season. That's when the barley harvest comes in. You got the barley harvest, you got the wheat harvest, and you got all the like the grapes and the fruits and things that come towards the end. Remember, I used to have a chart, but I think I put it up. It was a chart that showed our harvest season from the beginning to the end. So we got to the Feast of Ingatherings, and then you go into the winter season, and then you start it again. But it shows you all the things that grew in our land, in our region, that, you know, when it came in season. Now, you know, those of us who didn't, especially those who didn't grow up outside of the, outside of the city, we get, stuff nowadays in the supermarkets all year round. All year round. It's like if you was in a country and then you getting barley stuff in like winter, or you getting barley in the fall. You're like, the hell is this? Barley don't grow in the fall. Barley don't grow because now the way, Esau is manufacturing things and, bringing in things from different areas, you kind of disconnected from harvests. You disconnected from the cattle and the food and things of that nature on how it's actually cultivated and raised. But things like this just kind of, it could have just said in the beginning of the year, right? Could have said something like that, but it says in the beginning of the barley harvest as a teaching tool to remind us to even understand our seasons. That's like when we just read in Nehemiah that they couldn't speak the language, to remind us to be cognizant of our culture and things that we should be keeping in our heads as we read to sustain us and move forward. Good. All right. So we will continue on in Ruth in about a few weeks to get more of the storyline of what happened between her and Naomi and how she was to raise up seed to keep the law that you read in the Bible, right? That she's supposed to raise up seed unto or one of his kinfolk. So this is before I move on. Let me see. Or I think we'll wait until we get there because it's going to go over that aspect of the law that's in Deuteronomy 25. It's in Deuteronomy 25 and 5 all the way to 9. Actually, 10. So write down Deuteronomy 25 and 5 all the way to 10, which is going to be the focus of the whole book of Ruth, because she was his one and only wife, even though she was a heathen. And now she's coming and keeping the law, following our God, she was now going to be the one that was going to fulfill what we read here in the law. I'm just going to read the 5th verse. See if I can just only read the 5th verse. It says, if brethren dwell together and one of them die and have no child, the wife of the dead shall not marry without unto a stranger. Her husband's brother shall go in unto her and take her to him to wife and perform the duty of a husband's brother unto her. Right? So that was a law. Now, this is where Paul talks about, all things are lawful, but all things are not expedient. Right? Because in today's times, especially if you're a brother that's in the truth, right? And your family's not, and this circumstance happens, oh man, that's going to be it's going to be shameful to a certain degree, right? Your brother had a wife, they didn't have kids, and he dies. Unfortunately, he passes away. And then you like, oh man, I got to keep this law. And now you go start dealing with his wife to raise up seed. Everybody gonna be like, but what the hell is this? That's what you was doing. You was waiting for your brother to die to take his wife. You probably was scheming on her the whole time because they don't understand. Yeah, you got to be very careful with that, right? They may not understand. So it's a lot of things like this that's in the law that is lawful unto us as a nation, that we're keeping it according to our heritage and our culture. But in today's society, certain things that may not be expedient, like going and taking your cousin, right? Having your cousin, you got your cousin coming over for a family reunion, y'all sitting out back, and you're like, what y'all doing back here? Get that nastiness out of here. Y'all better get yourselves to be like, what are you talking about? Nah, auntie, it's lawful. She's good. What? Boy, if you don't, and she go out there and start telling everybody, and they start looking at you like you out of your mind, and then they start looking at the Bible, and not even the Bible. They start looking at what you're dealing with as a cult, right? Because they don't understand. So we got to be very careful and tactful. This is where some things, as far as for milk and meat and how you give it, you're not obligated to go marry a cousin. It's lawful, but you're not obligated. Now, in this situation, in theory, not in theory, in biblical law, you're supposed to be obligated. However, this is going to cause some confusion, right? It's gonna be a problem. This is probably like one of them questions I would ask in the class this evening, as far as for who you marry and things like that. Let's say this happened, what do you do? What would I do? Right? My brother died and his wife didn't have no children yet. I'm like, man, I gotta pray on this, right?
Well, let's say you don't have a wife.
Huh?
Let's say you don't have a wife already.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna read it.
Brother died.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He didn't have no kids, but you already have a wife already. Do you take your brother's wife to have kids with your brother's wife? You have a wife already?
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought it was only if you didn't have a wife.
I'm gonna read it again. If brethren dwell together and one of them die. Now, here's the thing, right? Because when we read further along in Ruth, right? They went to there's a kinfolk. So let's just say if it's 2 of you, if it's 5 of you, what have you, right? Then you can say, okay, you got a wife, you got family. You don't. You go and you marry her, whatever. So there's a lot of different variations to this, because when he didn't have nobody, he didn't have no nymph. That's when they went out to his kinfolk and said, okay, maybe it's cousins or this second, third cousin. All right, we find this guy, he's of his kindred. Now you gotta marry, because you're the nearest one and you're available to marry her. Got to marry. And if you don't marry her, that's shame. When you read further on in the law, now that's shame to you. Take off the shoe and everything. Yeah, right. And that's a disgrace to you within your nation. Because let's just say you ain't married and you don't go and do that, right? And they perform the acts that's just written in there, as far as for spitting on you, throwing a shoe at you, and everything else. And everybody know, oh man, that guy's a disgrace. Right? Now you want to go get married, and you go to some father and say, hey, I want to get you. Nah, not you. You a disgrace out here in these streets. I ain't gonna give my daughter over to you, and you disgraced the Most High by not doing that. Nah, right? That's what you run the risk of. So that's why the Most High wanted to have it like that. But right now, today, that's a difficult thing to do, right? So I know I was putting it on. I think a lot of my topics was, so far was women based as far as for what would a woman do. But yeah, if I'm in that situation, that's a tough call. I gotta be like, damn, do I just say, hey, man, it ain't the truth? It ain't the truth, man. Or do I have to go and present the case, right? So, I see your hand. So I remember, and when I had my ceremony, right? I had my ceremony. I wrestled with that because of understanding that, well, but by the time I came into the truth, I was already married and had a child, right? I didn't even have that, thing of, I got to go to the father and everything. I didn't do all that. But when we had the ceremony, I had to put that into play. And I said, you know what? It's supposed to give a dowry and everything else. So I was like, what I look like? What I look like going with some form of shekels to my father? Like, you're going to look at me like I'm bugged out my mind. Like, what the heck is this? You buying off my daughter? Like, what? How much money is this? Right? Is that what you think my daughter is? Money? Like, he wouldn't understand. So in the sermon, I had to outline that and said, this is what we did in biblical days. This is what the law stated. But I understand that you wouldn't understand it. But I'm outlining this here, and I'm giving you. I gave my father-in-law. I gave actually both of us, both my parents and her parents, a marriage certificate that said this is what it was mainly for him. I gave a father. I wrote it up. I wrote the laws and everything on there. Had it printed out on some nice paper, and I left places for me to sign. And said, listen. And I gave it to her father. That said, listen, I'm coming to you to take your daughter, as in the ceremony. And then he signed and he did it because I was thinking about this. So going back to my brother died. I gotta go to my sister-in-law and say, sis, I know you ain't gonna stand this right now. I know we was cool, but maybe in like, you shouldn't deal with nobody. Like, take some time to yourself, take a year or whatever, collect yourself, and then maybe in a year and a half, She gonna probably take water, throw it in my face, slap me, do everything else, because she ain't gonna understand all this, right? It's not expedient. But quiet.
And this should serve as the extent of Jeremiah 17:4. How far we are alienated. We are alienated from our tradition, from our tradition. So while it seems like it's weird, this also shows how we're so alienated, far gone, far removed from our natural way of our Most High. And that's why when we had come out of Egypt, the Most High, we had 40 days and 40 nights just to renew our mind, just to erase what the Egyptian had put in our head. Even that was challenging. To the point where we spent how long we spent in the wilderness? 40 days?
40 years.
40 years in the wilderness. Still
40 days and nights to spy out the land.
Right. Like 40 years in the wilderness. All that was to weave up from the Egyptian. Everything that we knew about the Egyptian, the Most High took us by the way of the wilderness. Right? Just to like pretty much brainwash us. Yeah. So that we can come out. So it's not an easy thing. So when we see we can do it, how long we've been here? We've been here for so long, so it's almost the same thing. So now we in that captivity mindset, we finally move, and we for overnight to come with you say you're gonna marry your wife, your brother gonna come. That's crazy because this is why.
Yep. And
online, they always had this meme, right? They kind of have like incest. And so this isn't even incest. But they'll label it incest. They'll play the Sweet Home Alabama. They always play that song. They kind of make jokes on the internet. They say, Sweet Home Alabama. They'll play that song. Like, oh boy, you marry your cousin. You go from down south. You from out in the mountains. And it's just like you said, no, this is actually, once again, we were saying earlier, it goes back to, even with the whole cousin thing, even with what we did here with Ruth, brothers look at this and say, oh, it's an excuse to get with the Asian women. I like Asian women. Like, no, this is inheritance. Let's deal with inheritance. Not like Boaz was out here, looking for a so-called Chinese to get with. No, it had to do with inheritance.
Yeah.
And like you were saying earlier, Dr. McBride, about that lineage of Christ, and how Boaz was part of that. So that's the bigger picture.
Okay. Yeah, I think you know, the Bible tells you in what is it, Isaiah? Let me see. Isaiah, I think it's 29.
Because everything was geared towards the house shot. It was set the stage for your house. Everything was made to that effect.
Oh, one more thing I want to say too.
Go ahead.
It just shows you how far we're removed with the so-called Christianity too. Because everything is supposed to be spiritual, right? Even though they're carnal as far as, you know, prosperity doctrine, right? God bless me, look at everything I have. But then when we talk about inheritance, right, important lineage and family line, you know, oh, the so-called Christians push back. Oh, don't get caught up in endless genealogies, you know. Following Christ, it's not about, you know, your ancestry, you know. I can follow Christ and be anybody. It's just that they miss that big chunk of it. That's the whole lineage thing is very important. It's a spiritual thing, even though it's physical, it's spiritual. When we talk about lineage and inheritance and why it's important for everything. But this is totally missed by the so-called Christian.
Okay. In Romans 11:9, where it says, and David saith, let their table be a snare and a trap and a stumbling block and a recompense unto them, right? So, you know, some people stumble when they read the Bible. Most High set it up that way that it would be a snare unto them because they didn't follow it. They're not following it as it is written. They're not following it with the right spirit in mind. They're reading the Bible. When you read the Bible thinking that everybody can be saved, it's going to be you're going to read the Bible, but you're going to read it with traps set up all over the place. The same wording that I read, they're going to read, and it's going to be traps set up everywhere because it's not according to the spirit of the Most High. So the Lord, David in the spirit said, let their table be a snare and a trap and a stumbling block and a recompense unto them, you know, because of how they act and what they do. So that's how, when they read certain things, sometimes we may have disagreements on, you know, it's Cornelius, Israelite, is he a heathen, or certain things. But if it doesn't change the foundation of heathens ain't going to get into the kingdom and be ruling with Israel, or they're not going to be chosen, they're not going to be beamed up in the chariots, then okay, cool, you believe that, okay, cool, it doesn't change. But once it starts changing and altering the truth of the Lord, then that's when it became a stumbling block. That's when it became a snare, and you got caught up, because we've seen it in this school, right? We've seen it before where somebody had that thought and it was like, yeah, nah, the heathens can be saved. And then all of the words that they was reading and breaking down changed. The everything started changing. And I was like, brother, do you realize that everything that you learned down is gone? Like you saw, yeah. I was like, wow. All right, brother. Right? And then what happens? The Most High weed them out. Right? They don't stay on that. They don't advocate for that after the fact. They stay with that for a good year or so, and then after what happened, they go back out in the world. Right? It's not like they're going out there, they pastors in the church. They kind of keep that, and then they go from one thing to the next, toss to and fro, because they didn't come and sustain themselves with the right spirit.
I think the word saved, you know, is confusing a lot of people, because when they read that, oh, I'm saved and you're not saved. But I had a struggle with that too. Until I read Isaiah chapter 14, maybe understood what the word saved, when it says save Israel, when you realize the other nations are going to be in the kingdom too, but on a different level.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The same when you read in Revelation, it tells you to give you the 12 tribes that their name is on the gates. And during certain high holy days, the other nations are going to be there too, but they're going to be in the outer gate, we're going to be there in the gate. Right? So that's the main difference Why I understood what the word saved, what the word saved meant, that helped me to understand, bring me forward. And it's not just because when people hear the word saved, it just automatically, oh, he's saved and I'm doing it. That's how a lot of people in the world perceive when you tell them, oh, Israel is saved, and that's it. So that's what I think that's where the struggle comes in to get to understand.
I'll say this much, even with that, as you bring it out, I was about to close out with saved. Saved has levels, right? Because you read in Matthew 24:13, he that endureth unto the end, the same shall be saved, right? You read in Romans Romans 8:24, it says, for we are saved by hope, right? So now if you look at some people in the churches, they say, I'm saved already. The Bible says I'm saved, for we are saved, past tense, by hope. And then you read in Matthew, it says, you got to endure to the end to be saved. And you'll say, we ain't at the end yet, but I got hope. Scripture said I'm saved already, right? So when you look at saved, then it talks about, and it says, all Israel shall be saved. Shall be saved, right? So then there's even levels to that, because we'll say, well, not only say from what and how are they going to be saved, right? Some is going to be saved when they get taken up in the chariots. Others going to be saved after they come back to the reincarnation. So there's a lot of different aspects to just that saved that most people, don't fully understand based on context. Dr. Zak.
Yeah. Additionally, being saved from what? Luke 171 was saved from my enemies.
Right. So that's another form of being saved. Because one, can you be saved from your enemies? You're saved by hope, right? Which is almost kind of the same thing, right? You're going to be, that you're going to be saved from your enemies. We're not saved from our enemies yet, but we hope to be saved from our enemies physically. So sitting in that hope, if I continue in that, I'm good, right? But like I said, people in the Baptist church or Methodist church or whatever will say, no, I'm saved already. We saved by the blood of Jesus. I'm saved. Listen, it's dripping on me, right? Yeah. And somebody said, speaking of the blood of Jesus in the church, somebody said when people get the Holy Ghost in the church, why you hardly never see a man bouncing up? Why is it always women? Like men don't get the Holy Ghost in church? You see some? I don't remember seeing some dudes. All right, pull it up after the class. I want to see.
Yeah, it's different. You touched on it. It's different aspect of sin. For example, one can be said, I'm saved from the power of sin. Right now, I'm trying to stay saved from letting Satan overpower me. Like when I was in the world, I wasn't keeping the law. I was under the power of Satan. Now that I'm following the Most High, and I see the truth now, I'm keeping the law. Now I'm saved from being under the power of Satan, like where I was all out in the world. But that doesn't mean salvation. You get salvation yet? It's saved and salvation. Salvation is of Israel, the inheritance. Who's going to inherit the kingdom? That's salvation, right? So the saved and salvation.
When you're saved, is considered your salvation in that aspect, right?
Yeah, it's saved. It's not salvation until I get in the kingdom and inherit the kingdom. Now I got to go to the end to get the salvation. I'm saved under the power of Satan right now by keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. Whereas when I was in the world, I was under the rulership of Satan, doing things that I thought was good, but it was all Satan under sin. But now that I'm following the Most High, I'm saved from the power of sin that I didn't know before I came to the truth. Right? But as far as salvation, I don't have salvation yet because the kingdom is not yet here. Because I don't get the kingdom yet. I don't inherit anything yet. That I gotta endure unto the end to get that.
And salvation is what? It's in and of itself, it's like a preserving, right? It's like a maintaining. So, like you said, when we belong to Satan in the world, it's like we're being destroyed. And when we talk about, food, leftovers, Thanksgiving, and all that, I'm gonna save your plate, right? So it's like I'm gonna preserve something. So when we sin, it makes sense when we grow old and die. destroying ourselves from our soul on out, right? Whereas we begin to keep the commandments, now it's like we're preserving ourselves. And then you said the ultimate preservation comes through when Christ comes back to bring everything back together.
Yeah, now we know about salvation.
Yeah, this is say 1 Thessalonians 5 and 21. I preserve both your soul and your close out. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 23. The very God of peace sanctify or cleanse you wholly, meaning entirely. And I pray, God, your whole spirit and soul and body be preserved blameless unto the coming of our Lord, or Adawan, Yahweh Shai Mashiach.
Right.
So that preserved is going into salvation.
Right. In Romans 10 and 9, right? If you confess with your mouth, right, Yahweh Shai, and believe in your mind that he raised from the dead, thou shalt be saved. Right? So now you're no longer under the power of Satan. Now you're under the power of Yahweh Shai. That thou shalt be saved. But now you shall endure to the end to get the salvation of the kingdom. So anytime you can get back into the power of Satan again, Satan can take over you. Right? So you got to endure to the end.
Which is where you're not preserved. Now you got expiration expiring now.
Right. The saving is that did not endure until the end to get the salvation of the kingdom. But you're no longer doing things that you were doing in the wedding.
Okay. That's a class. Saved, salvation, levels, context. All right. So thus concludes Judges chapter 21, Ruth chapter 1. Next week, we will be reading 1 Corinthians chapters 8 and 9 for next week's Sabbath service. As always, please write down, hopefully you wrote down any questions, any add-ons that you wanted to further discuss that we can discuss during the class coming Tuesday or Friday night. Lord's will, everybody was edified, was able to get the precepts, the understandings. Again, if you have some questions on the breakdown, especially dealing with Ruth, please bring them to the Tuesday or the Friday class so we can discuss further. As always, we want to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High in Christ for knowledge, wisdom, understanding, for peace of mind, for comfort, for healing of us that's going through physical as well as spiritual ailments and issues, to allow us to sustain ourselves in these last days, continuing with the daily bread that the Lord blesses us and nourishes with every day. All right. So with that, we're going to say Ashar Shabbat, happy Sabbath, peace and blessing, shalom to all the brothers and sisters that's listening on both mediums, teleconference, live stream, and to the occupants here. Most High's will, we'll see each other soon, face to face, if not, at least through these same means. All right. Stay tuned for the closing prayers. Shalom. Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah, Asherah, Nathan Lanawa, Par Yahagapin, Thawada Aman, La Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shah, Ath Yasha'Allah. English translation: Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shah, that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it. to Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai. I mod upon you, Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem. Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Baba Kushai, Shemai, Lanawa, Aitha, Yum Yun, Aitha, Shalak, Mayaka'ala, Waha'alahayim, Tazwadakim, La, Shema'il, Barak, Rapah, Magun, Wahakaziyat, Banya, Yasha'ala, Washalak, Lanawa, Rabium, Kakamah, Rabium, Da'ith, Rabium, Mayana, Rabium, Sabalanwa, Rabium, Amawan, Rabium, Wa, Rabium, Aha, Rabium, Agana, Rakhanaya, Wasalat, Ko, Kata Yamna, Laha'akim, Wa'akwa, Wayasha'ala, Yad, Wawalam, Basham, Yahawashah, Thawada, Amun. English translation. Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai, the Most High, in the name of Christ, please listen to us now. Right now, send Michael and the righteous powers of angels to watch over, bless, heal, protect, and make strong the children of Israel. And send to us much wisdom, much knowledge, much understanding, much patience, much faith, much brotherhood, much love, much spiritual protection. And forgive all our sins for the brothers and sisters in Israel, always and forever. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you, so be it. Four Corners Prayer. Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Barak Nawa, Wayasha'ala, Wabat Yasaparim, Shema, Yasharallah, Yahweh, Allah Hayanawa, Yahweh, Achad. English translation. Most High, in the name of Christ, bless us and Israel in the house of books of schools. And Deuteronomy 6:4, hear, O Israel, the Lord our power is one power. And with that, we'll say again the Shah Shabbat and Shalom Yashrallah. Have a blessed remaining Sabbath day.
Shabbat.
Shalom. Shalom. Shalom.